Okay, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 4 o'clock. I'd like to call to order the September 17th meeting of the Downtown Design Review Board, and we will start with introductions of members and ex officio members, starting with Cameron.
Cameron Boland. It's saying on red. Can you hear me? It is on. Anyway, Cameron Boland, AIA representative.
Rick Blackburn, Historic Zoning Commission.
Tony Allen, Downtown Business Rep.
Laura Wen, Downtown Residential Representative.
Sarah Martin, Urban Design Representative.
Jared Worsham, Downtown Resident Representative.
Suzanne Taravella, Neighborhood Representative.
Dallas DeArmond, Knoxville, Knox County Planning Staff.
Melinda Woolert, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Samuel Hawk, also with Planning.
Mike Reynolds, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Christina McGruns, Tillery City Law Department.
Mark Reel, City of Knoxville Plans Review and Inspections.
Thank you. I'm going to start with just a couple of housekeeping things. We have one member that needs to leave by 5:15, and then the room closes at 6. So we're going to try to be efficient today. The next thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes, and we do have one correction. It's to a case from last time that's 6A25IH, and we're correcting one of the conditions. Condition 3 was not specified clearly when we made the motion, so we'd like to clean that up today. So that condition 3 is to say both elevations. Is that good? Okay. So with that correction, we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes unless we have other comments.
Yeah, I motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Thank you. We'll move on to the staff report.
Right, just want to start off with the level 1 approval since the last meeting. So we had some revisions to a level 1 porch approval over in Edgewood Park. And then we had a new subdivision plat over on Savoy Street. This is for one of our cases today. This was combining two non-conforming lots of records to reflect the tax parcel boundaries.
We also approved the repair and replacement of the existing glass tiles from the transom of this building's second-story bay window and the installation of a storm window in front of the glass tiles. The existing tiles of the central transom will be replaced with 1896 Frank Lloyd Wright Luxor prism tiles to match the side transoms. So the exterior rehabilitation of the former TVA Credit Union building is back on the agenda as requested by the board last month. The board approved a certificate of appropriateness for this project subject to 2 conditions. This meeting is to discuss the soffit material of the patios and the wooden door design for the residential entrance on the Gay Street elevation and the gallery entrance on the residential entrance on the Wall Street elevation and the gallery entrance on the Gay Street elevation. The proposed revisions have no conflicts with the previous approval. The applicant has provided an example image to show the intent of the solid wooden door design. The proposed extended metal panels, precast concrete panels, and natural gas lanterns on the entrances remain unchanged. The board should discuss whether the residential entrance door could incorporate transparent features such as textured glass panels to provide the interior pathway with natural light while maintaining privacy. On this slide, you can see the details of the inset patio ceiling. The 19-feet deep patios will have stained wooden ceiling with tongue and groove finish. Staff recommend approval of certificate 8A25DT subject to the 2 previously approved conditions and the following additional condition. The final door design shall be submitted to planning staff for review and approval.
Thank you for that. Just to clarify, that's for 319 South Gay Street, and that is number 8A25DT. So we'll the applicant is present. Hi. Do you have anything to add to those comments?
Amy Sherrill, Benefield Richters, 902 North Central Street. Just wanted to clarify, so in the previous conversation, we had gotten through the point of the doors being solid, and you all asked for some additional information about what those doors might look like. The image here is, I'm going to call it inspiration, and I think Samuel did a nice job of trying to say that. The doors are going to be commissioned. I mean, it's an art gallery, kind of lends itself to exactly that. So I don't have a way of showing you a final, probably until they're already manufactured. But this is something that I asked the owner to provide me, something that's close to giving the feel and intent. And so we tried to give some of that description there of it's going to be, a wood finish, it's going to have brass plates on it, trying to give you a little bit more information about the intent there, knowing that I can't provide you a final. And then the ceiling, we have been able to get confirmation of that material and intent there so that we could, I guess, answer as many questions as we could for you all to clear that up.
Great, thank you for that. I will open it up to the board for discussion.
I have a quick question. One of the comments was about the transparency for the residential entrance, and I had even commented on that at the last meeting. Has there been any consideration on the residential entrance and the wood solid door there to allow residents to see out?
The owner actually would like to continue with a solid door. It is a single residence on the upper floors, so it's not a situation of it affecting multiple occupants. So really, from their standpoint of understanding the idea of security, it's them and their home. And so that was their desire to keep it solid.
Okay. Sorry, I was under the impression that it was a residential entrance in the sense of it was going into a lobby for multiple units.
So a single unit.
So it's a single unit. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. My general thoughts on the idea of intent, I think as a board, we see a lot of designs where there's a lot of intent in design, and we oftentimes ask for what is going to be presented to us to be what is going to be there. And again, I go back to my comment from the last meeting. I feel like for something to be going on Gay Street and there to be no precedent for solid wood doors on Gay Street, I'm not comfortable with intent.
Yeah, I agree that we need to see the final, and I mean that could be that's a shop drawing. It's a something to be able to understand that. I also just have a general design question. The doors itself just seem so foreign to the overall design of the project. Like, why? Is there something on the interior that resonates with a solid wood ornate door like that? Because the outside, it just seems completely foreign to the rest of the facade treatment that you all are doing.
So the intent is actually for it to stand out from the other, because it is the gallery is inset, and it's a different experience of entering that space. And in a lot of ways, that initial thought and idea is part of that experience. And like we talked about before, these are only closed when the shop is closed itself.
Right.
So when it's operating hours, they're pinned and within the scope of sort of that entry. I'm gonna call it a tunnel for lack of a better description.
Right.
But it is an intentional decision as it relates to what's happening inside that space and in the building.
Yeah, in the last meeting also I asked to show it open. Like if that's really what it's going to be during the day and there's a vestibule on the inside, like seeing that would have helped the argument that like it's not really opaque, it's actually open most of the time and people are really coming through storefront class beyond.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but it also responding to what you all asked for, which was the wood doors, showing them open wouldn't have been able to show you what you asked for. So
right. I mean, it could have been that little diagram there, been able to show it. Anyway, I mean, I'm just saying that's something like to help your argument. But is there going to be signage on this door as well or anywhere near it?
The intent is actually that the signage for the gallery and the building will occur in the band above and not on the doors themselves.
So is it going to be in the precast or in the upper band?
The band where the cursor is currently.
Okay. Because that was one of my thoughts, was the proportion of that's going to be obviously take away from your, where you're able to put it above the door itself.
The doors are opening in, is that right?
In this particular instance, yes, they'll open in and pin in place during operational hours. The other side is it will swing out, but it's set back in order to swing out into within the property line, if that makes sense.
So the wood ones that we're seeing, when they're closed, we see the artistic elevation, and when they're open, we see the artistic elevation.
So when they're open, the artistic elevation, right, both sides, it'll be pinned so that it'll be kind of
It creates like
a
a
wall
threshold
face,
there. Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And then it'll be a solid closed, and I think to some extent, the sense of mystery as we relate to this art gallery is part of the purposeful intent here, is to create that so that it's part of that experience. And again, our intent here is to get as much information as we can to you all about what we do know. And if we can get to a point of you all can feel confident with, when we get to the point of we have shop drawings or we have something close enough of a fabricated something that staff can approve it. We're just trying to facilitate being able to move forward. They don't want to commission doors until we have some reasonable assurances, and that process is a little sticky, so we're trying just to get as far along as we can to get us there.
I feel like the design intent is clear, and I'm just speaking for myself, but we often want design that is actual design and creates unique experiences that tell the story of our city, and I think this is an opportunity for that. And I think the balance between having some artistic direction and then also the transparency that this board requires is balanced in this case. So I do think that it's a valid solution. I think the one worry that I have is just whatever is commissioned could be literally anything, and we're a little bit nervous about that. And so I do think that the concept, in my opinion, is approvable, but we would still want to see what the shop drawing or the artistic sketch or whatever is as a final.
And so this is going to be a little bit of a question balance between staff and you all, because you all need to get to a point where you're comfortable and you're protecting our downtown and figuring out how we get through approvals for permitting. And so balancing how does being held on that, is that a staff review something? How do we get to a point where we can permit the building? Knowing those doors may not be fabricated until we're moving.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a weird situation.
Do you know if the owner is going to require, or if you're going to require some kind of sketch or design concept before they say go on creating them?
I have no idea what their process will be. I would think that's the process they would follow, but they're artists, and in commissioning that, what that relationship and boundary will be professionally, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I just, if we had a project up here and it was like, well, we're putting a garage, this is a design intent of what it will probably look like, we would totally flag that and say, no, come back when it's a design garage. So to your point about what level of it is permittable so that you can continue your work, we wouldn't be approving the door, we'd be approving a concept, which is a bad precedent, I think, for the board to approve a concept. So how do we also keep progress and design and work happening in downtowns? So I don't know if you all have a comment on that.
So in plans review, we can enter a failed zoning inspection for the COA, and that way everything else can continue on. And then before a final CO is issued, we can go out and make sure that the COA was met. And so that last comment, that last standard would be met as far as meeting the approval that you guys give for the door. And then once it matches the COA, we can approve that zoning inspection, and then the CO can be issued after that.
The other thing, just to remind the board about a little bit of flexibility that you all have, is that you can delegate the power of approving the final door to staff so that the applicant wouldn't have to come back to a formal board meeting Now, with that in mind, though, I would say, set some standards, some guidelines for staff, kind of a realm of approval that you all would be comfortable with.
I think that's a little tough because it is an artistic project, and so we can't say it has to look like this, but not like that, because we don't know what their intent is yet. So
It'll have to come back.
I think it needs to come back, but I do like the idea of saying that everything else is approved except for the final detail of the door, and when that's available to show us, then we'll give you a final answer. Okay. I don't know how to say that in a motion, so I'm going to let somebody else do that.
So, Mark, can you clarify when you said the COA would be essentially delayed approval, but would she be able to basically present a concept, shop drawings of the door to the board? Because I imagine this will be a pretty expensive piece, and you wouldn't want to fabricate it and then bring it to the board.
I don't think it can be fabricated yet. It'd have to be the shop drawing.
Or a rendering or
Yeah.
a concept drawing of some kind.
And I don't know that that's the process they were following, but that's what we'll tell them is gonna just have to be necessary. Yeah. So, but again, I appreciate figuring out how we can move forward with permitting, knowing I don't have control over a piece that's being commissioned. Yep. So,
Yeah, but given that it's going to be something that's reviewed by the review board, they'll have to just be informed that if they want to do the commission, they'll have to run through that process. Okay, I'll attempt to articulate it. So I'd motion to approve per staff recommendations with the added condition that the front doors, the wood carved doors, be resubmitted to the board for review and approval via shop drawing or rendering process during fabrication.
Cameron, do you want that? Do you want that to include the side door on Wall Street as well, or just
Both,
the gate
yeah.
street?
I'm assuming they're both being commissioned, so yeah, both doors. Is that articulate enough?
I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
I do want to note real quick, you included the staff recommendation, which is saying that the doors have to go to planning. I just want to make sure y'all want it to go to staff and to the board.
I think
Yes.
it was meant to be an amendment of item 3 so that it comes to the board instead of staff.
Right, well, either way, it would go to us ultimately, but yes, it could be an amendment to 3 as well.
Is that clear enough? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that version carries. Thank you.
So,
Okay, next up.
sorry, go ahead.
Next up, we have 617 Main Street, which is case number 9B25DT.
And just real quick on this one, since I'm an employee of the university, I'm going to recuse myself from the discussion and the vote on this.
Myself as well.
And then I have a question, do we have quorum with them recused?
So it's a majority of present and voting. So with that, we have 5, right? Yeah, so we're still good. So we would
Nice.
need 3. Yep. All good.
So this is a new illuminated sign for the UT facility at the corner of Main Street and Henley Street. The 38 square feet LED illuminated sign features the Power T icon of the University of Tennessee and white channel letters with 5-inch black returns mounted on the wall without any raceway. The proposed sign reflects the recommended types for the Boulevard District and is consistent with other wall signs on this segment of Henley Street. Staff finds that the scale and location of the proposed sign are compatible with the height of the one-story brick building and recommends approval of the request.
Thank you for that. Can you give us your name and
Yes,
address, please?
certainly. I'm Tom Allen with Allen Sign Company.
Great, thank you. And do you have anything to add to the report?
No, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut and y'all move ahead.
Okay, then we'll open it up to board discussion.
Is there a sign there currently?
No, we took one down that belonged to the law firm that was there a year or two ago.
I guess what I mean is there's been a sign there.
There
then.
has been a sign that pretty much location to a little more to the south from there. But
Okay, but are you using the same, like if there's a through wall penetration, are you just using the same area to get infrastructure and conduit and things like that through?
yeah, we'll definitely use the interior electrical that's there. The
Yeah.
exterior, what we'll do is go up and do a pattern to see what's there.
Okay.
We'll make if where we can utilize holes that have been drilled and
Sure.
sealed, we'll go back and reopen those that'll match up. Otherwise, we'll just match them with the mortar joints so we can minimize the damage to the
Yeah,
break.
that's a good answer for the minimize the damage. Yeah, that was really my biggest concern is just to, if there's something already there, use as much as we can before we introduce any new holes. So,
Yeah, we always do.
And they're individual letters. There's no backing or anything. You see the brick right through.
There's no raceways. They're behind the behind the wall raceway. So the low voltage wires will just penetrate the wall in existing holes or new holes in the mortar joints, and we'll tie those into a raceway behind the wall.
Okay.
Standard thing. It's 5-inch deep letters, LED illumination, so you see them everywhere.
Okay.
okay.
Any other comments?
Was there something in the application about it being centered on that wall? Is that, I imagine that's the intent, but I don't see the dimension line there.
We can render something that shows that it's equidistant from left to right with those sconce pieces, the arched pieces, if you'd like us to do that. And I'll tell you now, if you want it to be centered, we'll center it on that area. And we'll center it up and down in the vertical space too, if that's where you like it to be. Occasionally, there might be a problem with the roof line, depending on where the rubber roof lies. We like to go back into the same holes that we can. Hopefully, those will fall within the area above the ceiling, so we can get between the ceiling, the roof line and the ceiling, so we can run in there, and then everything's hidden, but not exposed to outdoors. So that's the intent. Occasionally, that forces us to move it up or typically down a little bit more, maybe. But left and right, I think that was their intent. They wanted it centered. That looks to me a bit off to the left just from standing here looking at it, but I can assure you that if you want it to be centered, it'll be centered. So.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to put that as a condition in the application. I think that just centering it on the wall horizontally is my intent, but if it needs to move up, down, I think that's fine as long as it gets a little space below and above.
Yeah, I agree. That I think I'm more interested in it being centered on the wall, left to right, than up and down. So,
yeah. That was their request, and I think that's what we've attempted to do, and I apologize. We have some interns working probably didn't put that measurement on there, but they'll be scolded.
put that in the condition.
We're going right back down.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as submitted with the added condition that the sign be centered on the wall between the center arches.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one carries.
Well, I need to do another drawing to send to you guys, or to submit that with the city for the permit for there?
Staff.
Okay,
Just to the
gotcha.
staff.
Just to staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. While we're welcoming our other board members back, we'll get started on 515 Market Street. That's case number 9C25DT.
The request is for the installation of 10 new windows on the 5th floor of the Home Federal Bank building on Market Street. The south elevation and the alley facing rear elevation will each include 4 windows, and the north elevation will include 2. Each window will be 7 feet 6 inch tall and 2 feet 8 inch wide, similar to the 2 rows of windows above the main entrance on the Market Street elevation. No changes will be made to the Market Street elevation. While the windows on the Market Street side feature a combination of concrete sills, arched headers, keystones, decorative lintels, and pediments, no windows are seen on the other 3 sides. The proposed aluminum-clad wooden windows will include precast concrete sill, mirroring a feature of the existing windows. Existing windows on the Market Street side have white exterior finishes. The same finish could be considered for the proposed windows to achieve a more cohesive appearance. Staff recommends approval of Certificate 9C25DD as submitted.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? Hi, can you give us your name and address, please?
Hi, I'm Chris Woodcock with McCarty Holsapo McCarty.
Do you have anything to add to the comments?
Not really.
Okay, we'll open it up for discussion.
I had a question for Mark. Is there any issue with openings across, I'm thinking property line and fire separation. Is there any issue with that here? I know that I can see in my other buildings, but I just wanted to know from my own education.
That would be James Tente, building official.
Right.
Comment.
I'm sure Chris and team have looked at that. That's what came to mind when I saw it. I was introducing them. Because like if the buildings below ever did grow up, there's going to be a separation moment. Maybe you have a comment on that.
The research that I've done said that that would actually be an issue with the lower levels. But we're so high above that at this point. And that's existing. I can't really speak for what's
Right.
going to happen in the future. What I can speak to is that Home Federal Bank owns all of those buildings
That's right. Yep.
now. So I don't, I mean, it would be up to them to essentially, if they want to approach that or if they want to completely take that over
Yeah.
and move between levels. They would no longer be
There's sometimes
doors.
that
They would be, you know, they wouldn't be windows any longer. They'd be passages.
That's right. And I guess the reason I'm asking is even if they own all the properties, it's a property line issue. That's why I was just
Right.
making sure. That's less
Yeah.
our purview, though. I'm just being a nerd and wanting to know. So, another question I wanted to ask you, Chris. Were there punches there originally, like historically? Did you guys look at any historic data on that?
No, I didn't do any work on that specifically. I can tell you that what we're looking at is 515, and then just to the right, if I get my numbers right, is 17 and then 19. And
Yeah.
you can see 19 in that image has
got
a
a
lot
bunch
of
of
punches in
windows,
it.
yeah.
So that's kind of what, that's kind of where what we're leaning towards is that, you know, contextually speaking, it makes sense. And by the fact that, you know, you see this all the time with two buildings that used to be located next to each other, one comes down, and it's a very simple punch. We don't want to get decorative. We don't want to turn this into anything more than it has to be. So that's kind of where we're going. But that brick is in really good shape, and I don't see any patches or fills.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Was there any existing infill or anything like that?
No, nothing like that. And you know, I was even interested in the back of this building. I know that, you know, you see how you see, you know, nothing there where it says west rear. That's actually what it looks like. There is not a single penetration
Right.
line, duct, anything. It's just a perfectly flat wall.
Okay.
So I don't think we're in the way of anything, and it's actually really hard to get to a point to see that even, so.
Well, thinking down the road too, since we are talking about, you know, design, is I see in the floor plan they've been allocated based on the new office spaces or rooms that are being added. Was there any consideration, since I know Home Federal is your all's client, like, is there ever a chance that there'll be other offices below that that
Yes.
need those openings? And did that
Absolutely.
inform your layout?
It does. So Home Federal, you know, we've actually started renovating this building, and it
Right.
will be a floor-to-floor situation.
Okay.
So, you know, looking at this right now, and even, you know, recent considerations, you see the front of the building is a very regular grid.
Yep.
And yeah, I know where this is going, but I think that what we need to do is kind of have it regulating enough for when we have to go below and then
Yep.
the next. You know, we want all those to be in line. They can't just be.
That's right.
Yeah.
This isn't the staccato random window pattern
Absolutely.
moment.
Which,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm completely on board with that.
Cool. Okay. Well, I don't see the drawing anymore, but the proportion of the window are those more long, like taller, slender windows, correct? Because there was one rendering, like from the street looking up, that they looked a little bit more square and proportionally odd. But so like the way you've got them, like where they're taller than they are wide.
So the window that we're using is the smaller of the two windows. You see, it's a single, double.
Yep.
You know, so
Okay.
we're using that single, and there was one more image that I provided, but it was very sketchy. I don't know if it made it into the presentation or not.
I think I've seen it.
It's in the package. We didn't include it because it's shown on the wrong side of the building.
Oh, okay. It basically looked just like that.
Okay, great.
So,
Do you have any other comments? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
I had one more comment, I'm sorry. Do we not, this isn't a historic building that we have to require them to submit profiles for the windows, is it? To be approvable?
According to the map, it's not.
It's not, okay. I apologize. I was trying to get that in, I couldn't remember my last comment.
But they are using aluminum clad wood windows, which are typically approved in a historic context. so
Right,
that's-
but usually we ask for the profile as well, just to make sure that it's conducive to the other adjacent windows.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we're going to move through the infill housing design review. And that first case is 3305 Savoy Street, which is number 8A25IH.
Okay. This case is for a new single-family house in Lonsdale, and it was postponed last month to allow the applicant to submit revised plans. A COA for the property's plat was issued administratively on August 26th. The revised plans removed the front entry garage and replaced it with a window and siding. The average setback of the block face is 24 feet, and a 33.7-foot front setback is proposed. They are proposing this setback due to the topography and the road intersection at the front lot line. The board should discuss if the front setback is appropriate. The final site plan should include a walkway from the porch to the street. Parking is a driveway in front of the house. Guidelines discourage front yard parking and recommend parking be 20 feet behind the facade. Parking should be revised to meet the design guidelines, with final location to be approved by staff. The site plan includes a tree in the front yard, but a tree should also be indicated in the rear yard, preferably the existing mature oak. The block to receive new construction lacks significant context, as it primarily features vacant lots and infill construction from the last 5 years. This subject property is near the western edge of the infill housing overlay, and this section of Lonsdale features isolated examples of historic houses, with most development beginning in the 1970s. The 54-foot wide by 46-foot deep house is slightly deeper and is 10 to 30 feet wider than the other houses on the block. However, it is more comparable in scale with nearby houses that are not on the block, some of which feature a similar range form. The house is proportionate to the dimensions of the lot, which is slightly wider than others nearby. The board should discuss the width of the proposed house. The design features an 8-foot deep stoop supported by one column. Guidelines recommend that new construction feature porches with proportions and support similar to the context, allowing for stoops where porches are not traditional. The infill construction present on the block features partial width porches. The board should discuss whether the stoop should be widened. The window and door styles are compatible with the context. A window should be added to the left elevation, which currently has no windows, and the right bay of the facade elevation drawing should be formally revised with the window featuring the same design as the others. The 612 pitch is the minimum approved by the guidelines. The materials are appropriate. The board should discuss the front setback, width, and stoop of the house in its context. Along with any necessary revisions or conditions, staff recommends approval of Certificate 8A25IH, subject to the following conditions: the final site plan to meet city engineering standards, parking to be revised to avoid the front yard with final location approved by staff, the final site plan to contain a tree in the rear yard with a mature oak tree in the rear to be retained unless revisions to parking make removal necessary, a window be added to the left elevation, and revised elevation drawings be provided, formally showing the window on the right bay of the facade, which should feature the same design as the adjacent windows.
Thank you. Can you give us your name and address, please?
If you'll press there's a little person button on that microphone, if you'll press that. Thank you.
Tony Nelson, 5037 Morningstar Lane.
Great, thank you. Do you have anything to add to Melinda's comments?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Then we will open it up to discussion. Can you scroll back to the site plan, please? Thank you.
Are you the builder or the resident?
I'm the builder.
The builder, okay.
Yes.
And is it for a homeowner or for a speculative development?
For a homeowner.
Got it. Do you have any information about how they selected the wider form instead of the kind of narrower, deeper type housing in the area?
Really, it's a capacity issue. They are raising grandkids. It's additional 5 grandkids going to be in the house, and they need to get as much room as possible at the moment. So it'll be a total of 7 people in the house.
And there is an alley for this property, right?
No, ma'am.
There's no alley.
No, ma'am.
It's not improved.
Okay.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question, of just the fact that it's a rancher. It was this just, these were just plans, I'm sure, just bought offline.
Yes.
It's got Knoxville, Tennessee, Sam Enzer. It's really suburban. I said, wouldn't, like, if it was anywhere else in our review, we would have denied it and just asked for it to come back, because it doesn't meet like the actual look and feel of any of the houses that we ever approve here. Which is where it started with the garage needing to come back to be not in the front like it is. And then like the porch isn't conducive to I guess the character of the communities to have like a front porch. That's why we're talking about it being wider or being deeper and actually being a front porch. So it's less about the capacity, I think, but it's just that it's being symbiotic to the other homes around it, which I know there's not a lot of context, but like if we're going by our guidelines, it doesn't meet that.
I understand that. I have built this house several times within the city, and I do have another rendering of the porch going all the way across that front living room window. It was my fault. I didn't pay attention to staff wanting a bigger porch till after I submitted it. So there is another rendering with a wider porch.
So you've built this 7 times in the infill housing overlay?
No, I'm just saying I've built this particular house several times.
Several
Several
sorry.
times within Knoxville. To my knowledge, I don't know if it's been in infill or not.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah. Well, you'd probably remember having to come back here though, wouldn't you? So.
yeah, this first time.
Yeah, I think that's our constraint, is that as a board, we are supposed to enforce the design guidelines. And so it doesn't meet the design guidelines as it's presented right now. And while I think that we would like to be flexible, and especially because there's not a lot of context in this neighborhood, it sets a bad precedent for us to not follow the guidelines that we're given to uphold. So I think in that way, the design needs to change quite a bit to meet the guidelines.
Right.
One question I want to ask is there room on the site to move the house over so that the driveway can be in the side yard and not up to the front, like it's shown now?
No, not with this particular house, it's not.
Okay.
If it gets revised to be more narrow and deeper, which would still get your ample bedrooms, then it would probably be able to get the drive past it and get the parking in the back, which is preferable.
On this particular street, there are plenty of houses with carports that are right in front of the house.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. That's what we're trying to rectify with new builds, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're, I know you're trying to rectify it with new builds, but if, it will still take years for the existing area to catch up with new builds with parking in the back. So these houses will have to get dilapidated, which is gonna take another 20, 40, 50 years to make sure that we all of them are back in the rear.
Totally understand that. Yeah, and it's just every house we have is our chance to slowly integrate that in the fabric the right way, according to the guidelines we're upheld to.
The other nice thing about the site that you got here is that you don't have, there's not such severe topography or lot line restrictions that I suspect a narrower, deeper house would still give you the footprint that they need, that same amount of square footage, but just change, so instead of wide there, but, a plan that turns that way would allow you, I don't see a big trade-off the family would have to, a price they'd have to pay in order to get it to fit the guidelines, because if it is narrower, it allows that, side driveway instead of the front one, still get the big footprint. And then I like your suggestion of the porch that goes across the front. That is the type of thing that they're trying to get with the guidelines.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'll say about the design that's there, that you've proposed, is that it's nice that it's one story. So many times we get these proposals where it's, 2 times the height of all the other on the
Yes.
block, and it's a good scale that way.
Yes, it's a catch-22. I mean, the city wants one thing and the homeowners want something totally different. And to each his own with everyone. The homeowners, one of their pet peeves is shotgun houses, and that's basically what you recommended. And they don't like shotgun houses. But to accommodate everyone, I mean, we may just have to try to figure something out to meet in the middle.
Well, luckily too, to Sarah's point, I mean, you have a larger width, so it won't have to be a shotgun. Like in actual traditional shotgun, the hallway is every room, so like it won't look like affordable housing shotgun style that I'm sure that they're adverse to as the homeowner. It can be 30 feet wide. It can be proportionally correct, and I think look really nice too, and not. I don't think it would be unpleasing to them. But again, the question is, then you'll have to get new plans, new drawings made for that.
Mr. Nelson, would you like me to show the alternate plans you provided?
Yes, please.
Is this a plan that the owner would entertain building?
Yes.
Okay. And
But
it's
if you-
51.
If you can see, we 3 feet, narrow on the width.
This one's 3 feet narrower?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm noticing on the site plan, your setbacks are only 5 feet on either side, so if you scooted it over, you would have some room to have a 15 or 18-foot wide driveway. That was my other question related to this one that was already submitted, is that it does have a garage on the front, and you proposed putting the siding on and a window, so what does that room become? Is that was just gonna be like a
It
living
was
room?
gonna be an unfinished room and become an unfinished den.
Okay, just like a
So, yeah, we weren't
multi-purpose
gonna
room.
finish it.
Okay.
When did you submit this alternative plan? Was that recently?
Yes, probably about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
He submitted it with the revised drawings.
Okay. There are several features to this house that are more compatible with our guidelines. It has a larger porch that's deeper. It has a raised base, so we have a little bit of base, middle, and top. And I don't know what the roof pitch is, but it looks like it's within compliance of what we typically require. And if it's more narrow, then you do have more side yard to put a driveway to the back. So in my opinion, this is a more appropriate solution.
Yeah, but it has shutters and other things on it that we'd have to talk about. I wonder if this is do you have full drawing sets of this? Like a full drawing set?
No, these drawings here have not been purchased.
Okay. I wonder if it's a postponement so that we can get the full drawing set to be able to review it in total.
Yeah, I think.
The only bad thing about that is, these plans cost $1,000. And I know sometimes you gotta spend money to get something, but I'm asking my client to spend $1,000 to something that may or may not get approved.
Sure.
And so the difference between this drawing and the one I presented first is just a wider porch, or is it just the whole facade that the gable up top compared to, 2 gables on the side of the one I presented?
I think the overall plan is closer to the intent of the design guidelines because it doesn't look quite as ranch style as that long and low first plan. So there are some nice advantages to this one, and the porch does a lot of that work. With the modification of that other plan to just put in windows where there used to be a garage, I worry it could look like it was meant to be a garage that was just inserted with windows, and this doesn't have that threat. It really does look like the whole thing was intended to be that way. I wonder, and I also like that with shaving a little bit off the width, you could conceivably favor one side of the lot and comply with the driveway requirement.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think we're a lot closer on this one. Myself being newer to the board, if we can reach for a few of the guidelines that this needs to satisfy to kind of help them make that path towards compliance, maybe that's what we do with our time.
Yeah, and I also would say, to your point, Mr. Nelson, was where did you all get to your point, if you had the drawing set before, what informed the style of the house that's originally submitted? what I'm getting at is we've got protocols in place that you could reach out to Melinda and others with the staff and say, is this more along the right paths of what is required for the design guidelines? And then that would allow you to make like an informed decision on that purchase. This is for the next time. Like if you start off by already paying $1,000 for these, you could circumvent that and get around that by actually getting like like, is this anywhere near like what is required for this design overlay? Like, did you even know about the design review board that you were required for this?
No, I did
On this
not.
project? Okay.
No, I
And this
got
is a project that you already own these plans and had built them previously.
Yes.
So-
Oh, that's
okay.
fine.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
why that
it.
happens.
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, I had these plans. I built this house the first time in 19. So,
Okay.
and that was budget-wise, we was trying to stay within too.
I think that's, and this is not related to you specifically, but that's a bigger issue for the design review board that, oftentimes a contractor and a client will have a relationship and the contractor will have a solution that meets the client's needs, but they own land that has this overlay. And so we in theory are coming in late to that discussion because they've already come up with a solution. But that doesn't change the fact that this is a lot within the overlay district and we're here to enforce those guidelines. So.
Okay, I understand.
So to Sarah's point, I think that this alternate solution is more appropriate, and I think we would have some things to say about the shutters and especially the window in the gable that's not consistent with the patterning in the rest of the neighborhood, but generally speaking, it's more in line with what we're looking for.
But those kind of things can be, removed without, putting the shutters in the window and the gable.
So is there a way to approve this and have a staff recommendation or staff review? An edit?
Basically approving it, it's saying that the window and shutters go back to the staff for approval.
There we go, something like that, and entry door.
The plans online didn't have all elevations available, so, I can gather from the floor plan, like the window location and things such as that. So, again, assuming those are fine, I can work with that. Typically, we'd require the porch to be increased to 8 feet to remove the guidelines. So those are kind of the big things that I'm noticing. So again, I would, if we're going to do that, I would just appreciate if y'all could specify what specific things from what you can garner from this you would like to be adjusted. And then, most of these conditions are related to the site plan. So if y'all can just put the conditions there so that I have the purview to do that, I'd appreciate it.
Well, then that might lead us back to the plans might have to be purchased, and then we get the edits and we're able to submit it. Because again, similar to a conversation we had earlier with the first project with the doors, we're assuming a lot. And again, like our field inspectors will go out there with a certificate of appropriateness when you're building it and say, all right, it's got to look like this. And he's going to say, all I've got is a plan and one elevation. So I don't even know what the other 3 sides are supposed to look like. So that's, and to Melinda's point, she has to review it too. So she's looking at a floor plan and interpreting what the elevation looks like, and that's not fair to the process. So it's going to need to have the drawings along with it.
I have a proposal, if Christina will allow it. Can we move to postpone this one and have conditions that help guide the next submittal?
Is there a portion of the application that you're thinking of approving while postponing the rest?
I'm just wondering if we could say that we're going to postpone, however, we would recommend removing the shutters, changing the shape of the gable or not gable, but the gable window and the site plan suggestions that are already.
Is that part of a delegation to staff or just as guidance for the applicant in the motion?
The intent would be just guidance for the applicant, so that when he comes back, he's more assured that it'll be approved.
So I think that probably doesn't belong in a motion to postpone, probably just the motion to postpone and then, just
Further
listing out your
conversation.
guidance. And staff, of course, has this meeting recorded and everything and can take from it and get with the applicant after the meeting, so.
Yeah, I will reach out over email and set up another meeting with Mr. Nelson, the Arbor family, if necessary, to help them adjust the plans.
I would say that this meeting I feel, and I think you all can echo this, that this plan is so close to the guidelines that the $1,000 for the set is not wasted money. This is the right direction.
Yes,
And the edits would be minor.
And I will take care of it. I'll buy them. I'll build that house somewhere, even if y'all disapprove it. So,
I like the positive response.
Yeah, that's
I have
helpful
one
attitude.
one last comment on this. I agree with what everybody said about this house being a lot closer. One thing we haven't talked about is the setback. And so I think you have it listed as 31 feet, or what is it, 33 feet. And when I was measuring on KGIS, it looks like it's more like 14 or 20 feet from the context. And so somewhere between there, I think would be more appropriate, and which will also help with your driveway length as well. The whole idea there is that the front porches would engage with the street more, so that neighbors are able to, wave and talk to each other from the porch. So.
Yeah, especially because this is near a corner. The other thing that I want to mention to the board is that it is actually written in our rules that we need to put a timeline on postponement. And so when we move to postpone, there should be some expectation, 30, 60, 90 days associated with that postponement.
But when we do that, it's to be helpful, not to be like, we need this in 30 days or something like that. It's to be like, to give, so I mean, if we say 30 and you're like, it would be more helpful if I could come back in 60, or, you know what I'm saying? Like for you
I
to be
will
able
come
to.
back in 7 days.
7 days.
We'll have the plans, have the plans on Friday.
Okay, I wish we could do that, but.
Yeah. I think that just has to be part of our discussion so that we make the appropriate recommendation.
Yeah, just put me back in as soon as possible.
Okay.
Whatever the next meeting.
Okay, so it sounds like we need a motion to postpone with a time limit, and then we also just need some follow-up discussion about the things that we'd like to see revised on this plan for next time, just to set him up for success next time we meet.
And then Tony's recommendation.
Okay.
We move to postpone. I move to postpone.
Okay.
With the 30-day turnaround, or resubmittal timeline? Great.
Okay, we have a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the postponement carries till next time. And then just before we adjourn this one, I'm going to attempt to summarize and I'm going to start with the site. The front setback needs to align more closely with the existing buildings on the street in that 14 to 20 foot range, whatever is appropriate. The driveway needs to go to the back of the site along the side of the house. The front porch should be at least 8 feet deep. The shape of the window in the gable with the little half round is usually not approved, so a more simple shape there, usually a square or rectangle. And
Should you put the rendering up?
yeah, that's helpful. And then usually shutters, unless there's historic precedent somewhere else on the street, we don't usually approve shutters. And the front door with the oval is not consistent with the style on the street. So something a little bit more simple there.
What about the columns? I feel like we generally will ask for a certain.
Normally, what I would do is just a smooth 6x6 painted column.
Right.
No design in them.
That's appropriate.
Isn't it an 8x8 minimum in the
8 by
infill?
8.
8x8.
And
But otherwise, yes.
They'll often get cased like that, but just not with the articulate, I guess, detail at the top. So it might have like some 1x4 trim at the
Yeah.
top and bottom.
That's I use a 6x6 and wrap it to
make it
be
to
out
the
to
8.
8x8.
Yep.
And
Great.
case top and bottom.
That's great.
Would this be slab or
Crawl space.
crawl space?
Great.
So anything on the, I don't know if we want to comment anything on this shows brick around the.
Typically, we
Foundation.
prefer brick, but some kind of parge coat or stucco on the crawl space.
Foundation, yes.
Yeah, it's something that's durable. And then what we typically talk about, just to give you a heads up, is if we use a parge coat, then usually we request a gravel base at the bottom so that if you're like weed eating up against the building, it doesn't get all torn
Yes.
up. That's typically everything that we address.
I think I can take Carol if I can talk the homeowner into falling back in love with this one.
Okay. We wish you the best of luck on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to move on to 3118 Fairview Street, which is 9G25IH. And I think Sarah wants to recuse for this one.
All right. They're proposing a 14.5-foot wide by 20-foot deep rear addition in the place of an existing closed back porch. The proposed addition will be visible from Fairview Street and from Nickerson Avenue, the side street. It meets design guidelines for placement, scale, form, and window styles. The house features a brick foundation and cladding. The proposed parge-coated block foundation on the addition meets the guidelines and will be minimally visible from the street. The fiber cement lap siding is comparable to the siding in the gable fields of the existing house and will demarcate the massing as an addition. With that, staff is recommending approval of certificate 9G25IH as submitted.
Thank you. Hi, can you give us your name and address, please?
Hope Tippett with Open Door Architecture, 729 Morgan Street.
Great, thank you. Do you have anything to add to the report?
Not at this time.
Okay, thanks. We'll open it up for discussion. Unless we don't have any discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve based on staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'll approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one's approved. Thank you, Hope.
Thank y'all.
All right, next up is 700 East Springdale Avenue, which is number 9E25IH.
Would you like me to get Sarah back in?
Yes, she's chatting.
Okay, all right. Well, I will go ahead and move on. Okay. Right, this case is for a new 19-foot, 11-inch wide by 15-foot, 10-inch deep L-shaped rear addition. The addition will be highly visible from East Springdale Avenue since the adjacent lot is unbuildable due to a creek, and it will be visible from West Glenwood Avenue, the side street. It meets design guidelines for scale, placement, roof material, and transparency. The addition will reduce the existing side setback to 4 feet and 1 inch, and the other side of the house features a 1 foot 1 inch side setback. The RN2 zone requires a 5-foot minimum side setback, and the combined side setbacks must be at least 15 feet. Thus, a variance would be required to approve the site plan. The DRB has the authority to issue variances via a COA if necessary to achieve the principles associated with the guidelines. The building's massing and placement are largely determined by the required setback from the creek. In the opinion of staff, the side setback variance meets the intent of the guidelines. The wood slat skirting is an appropriate finish for the block foundation, but is higher than the existing foundation line. The board should discuss the height of the skirting. Although guidelines discourage the use of vertical siding, the vertical siding is appropriate since it is a secondary siding material and distinguishes the addition from the existing house. The addition will feature a shed roof sloped in the opposing direction of the existing roof planes. The guidelines recommend that roof lines of additions complement the existing house and feature a similar pitch and complexity to historic houses on the block. While the opposing planes of the existing roof in the addition would be compatible with a mid-century modern or contemporary house, they are not with the minimal traditional house, and it is not found on other houses in this, nearby. The roof will be the most visible element from the right-of-way. The board should discuss the side setback variance, foundation skirting, vertical siding, and the proposed roof form. Along with any necessary revisions or conditions, staff recommends approval of certificate 9E25IH, subject to one condition, that the roof form be revised to be more compatible with the existing house, to be approved by staff, along with revisions to the elevation drawings and site plan as necessary.
Okay, thank you for that. Can you give us your name and address, please?
Yes, Logan Higgins, 133 South K Street. there's a handful of variables and factors with this site that most of which were highlighted. A couple that I will also point out. The RBZ for the creek is a very major determining factor on the shape and size of this addition. Original desire was to go similar in depth to the existing rear addition on the house, but that's just, the RBZ goes over that, and there's no way to be able to do that feasibly for this scope of a project. So that's kind of why you see this stepping of the footprint. It's not ideal, but it's the best way to maximize the usable space here. The other variables, the site visibility from the street, I do want to point out that both East Springdale here and West Glenwood are both dead ends right here. So any visibility, although yes, it is visible, it is pretty, it's a dead end street, so there's not a lot of traffic. It's mainly just nearby neighbors. House across the street is a older rancher, and then most of the other houses are this same base floor plan that this house is, but all of the other houses similar to this one have had additions at different times. So contextually, I think the addition fits in perfectly. The roof is definitely the biggest thing that we should, I hope that y'all will discuss and approve as drawn. And so to explain the intention behind that, there's a few reasons for why it is designed the way it is. One is for the simplicity of construction. So I know that not necessarily maybe a driving factor with the guidelines, but this house is currently lived in. It's not going to be moved out of for the duration of construction. To open up the roof above and tie in, like, let's say a gable, would be incredibly difficult to coordinate, and risks water damage in the house and whatnot. Secondly, following the roof pattern of the previous addition that slopes down, that section of the house is about 2.5 feet lower than the rest of the house. So in order to, if we were to follow that same roof line and just continue it, it would require dropping the floor down about 2.5 feet, which would require a staircase, which there's not room inside to fit. So following the previous roof line, or the existing roof line there, doesn't fully make sense. Tying in a gable would be incredibly difficult. And again, with the RBZ and having to step with the RBZ, it would look pretty strange to have a gable tying into that is then stepping in footprint. So this seemed like the best way to approach this in a very non-invasive way. The addition can be built without really disturbing anything inside, and just tying in and creating the kind of butterfly there. I understand that it is a more modern look than what you would see elsewhere in the neighborhood. But again, if we look at the National Park Service guidelines for additions on historic houses or structures in general, there are guidelines that additions should look more their current time and not necessarily try to match the historic. So I think in terms of overall precedent, having an addition that is a little bit more contemporary and how it looks does go with intent of overall guidelines. So hopefully we can approve it like this, but happy to also answer any questions that anyone has. Thanks.
Great, thank you. We'll open it up to discussion and questions.
Is the riparian buffer zone, that can't ever be built on, right? So that lot to the, in that site plan to the northeast front of it it's got the creek system, correct?
Yeah, and from talking with engineering, technically, yes, that lot would be unbuildable. They did say that because it's a lot of record, there they would have a little bit more allowances if someone were to build a house on it, but, or wanted to build a house on it, but it would be incredibly difficult for sure.
Which side, I guess I ask because of, I can see in the site plan, so it justifies to the, that northeast, the addition. So is there, if you're fringing into the 5-foot setback, that's also a fire separation question, is it not, between, if there was to be a house built there? So we'd have to consider that, like, because the 5 feet isn't just for zoning, it'd be also for the fire safety between, if there ever was to be another house built there.
With the IRC, as long as we're, the biggest thing, excuse me, the biggest thing would be with openings percentages, and
Okay.
our window, the only section with the window is inset a little bit further, and then the next thing would be fire rating. That wall that gets within the, I want to say it's like within 3 feet,
Yeah.
would have to have a
And
fire
I'm
rating.
saying that less for a design guideline and more of just FYI, if it, that's the implication of that variance approval, that it might cause issues later on. You said something about, you cited the National Park Service. Is this a historic home?
No, I
understand
because that's what the guidelines are kind of based off of.
Yep. I appreciate that comment from staff about the alignment of the base and the existing base, which I think is between, to your sentiment of a new build, referencing but not mimicking the past. I still think those regulating lines are really important. So is there a reason why that height was not aligning with the base and the block? Or is that not a hard change if you were to do that?
Yeah, very easy to make those match.
What is the WPC? What is the siding?
That's a composite material. The house underneath, the house is wrapped in vinyl. There is Dutch lap siding underneath that vinyl, and hopefully one day in the future the vinyl could come off and expose and repair the Dutch lap siding. But right now it's the vinyl, and so WPC is a wood plastic composite material.
It's a wood lap. Another question, the wood slats at the base, so this is basically gonna be like a post and beam system on like sonotubes for the foundation, and then that's why you're cladding it with the yeah. Is there any reservation you have about putting the wood that close to the ground? I know that's becoming a facade material at that point, but those slats are gonna take a pretty heavy beating.
Are they true wood or are they a composite too?
Those 2x2s or whatever that are
Yeah,
cladding the base.
I think that they would, base thinking was that they would be wood, they could be a composite, but with the bottom ones, I think that a couple factors, they would at least be off the ground, we would have gravel around them, and then because they're open, they're gonna dry a little bit faster. They will still get a beating, but I think like the bottom ones could be replaced more, may have to just be replaced more frequently.
I'm asking all these questions just for the fact that, like, I mean, I'm not averse to considering and approving a modern addition, especially for the reasons you gave on the, the dead-end street and those sort of things. But like, again, to Suzanne's point earlier, like everything we approve is cited as precedent for things in the future. So I want it to be as foolproof as possible so it doesn't shoot us in the foot later on.
I have a question about the envelope that's not really our purview, but if that's open underneath, then what is the floor envelope and the insulation condition under the floor?
Spray foam insulation with a water, outdoor grade plywood on the bottom of it.
I had a comment about the variance request. If I am reading the guidelines correctly, it says that we are able to approve a variance by COA if it is necessary to meet the guidelines. So my understanding is that there's no need for us to approve a variance because the variance isn't required to meet the guidelines, correct?
That's, yes, the variance the only way that the board can grant a variance is when it's needed to further a principle within the design guidelines. That's correct.
That's a good clarification.
Yeah, I can see a variance being needed for this, and I think you'd have a pretty clear hardship with the topographical situation. So there's a clear hardship, but that's not something we can regulate.
And last point I had was on the roof. So it looks like there still is like a moment where that shed on the bottom left elevation, East Springdale, where the shed is purposely offset from the edge. So is that like you're basically forming a gutter between the two pitches of the butterfly?
Yes.
So to your point of it interrupting construction, it looks like you've already kind of created a gasket between the two, and like that roof form of the shed could envelop it in another roof form if needed. Meaning like it wouldn't disrupt them while you're working on it, because it looks like you're already kind of like sistering those things together at this like insertion point, and that could still happen outside of it without them being disturbed while you're working on it.
Well, I mean, for that matter, it could also just be overframed from the outside.
Could be overframed on the roof, which is what my house has, which is hilarious when you get up in the attic and look at all of it. All the old shingles in there.
So can we clarify on the variance part? Sorry, were you finished?
I am.
Okay. On the variance part, is there a distinction between the variance that we can grant and what the BZA can grant? Like, is this a situation where the BZA is more appropriate, or?
Well, this board would have to determine that the variance it grants is in furtherance of some principle within the design guidelines. So that would be up to you all to say, yes, it is in furtherance of this particular guideline. Otherwise, a legal hardship would be required, and that's what BZA looks at.
So just as an example, that would be something like us requiring an 8-foot deep porch or the driveway going to the side of the house instead of the front, or something that we commonly reference
It's like
as
the
part
house.
of our guidelines.
It's like the house that was trying to get back from the tree and wanted a deeper setback. Yeah.
So let's look at that for just a second. So on the site plan, the reason that it's encroaching on the setback doesn't appear to have anything to do with our guidelines that I can see. Would you agree with that?
I'm curious if the staff report addressed that. I don't have it in front of me, but wanted to see if you all had written about that.
So in the opinion of staff, the variance would be necessary to meet the design guidelines. So that was based specifically on the design guidelines recommending that the form and massing be compatible, the placement being on the rear side of the house. There's no other, again, options where they could realistically place the addition due to that creek. So even though that creek is more of an environmental hardship, as opposed to something that's specified in the design guidelines, they would not be able, again, to realistically put the addition in another place.
Yeah, the
See, I
guidelines
agree
also
this- oh, go
speak to side yard setbacks should be similar to older houses on the block, keeping in the rhythm of spacing between houses consistent. There's not a house next door, but side setbacks that are consistent
Yes, and that
along the
was.
block could also be considered.
And that was also noted in the staff report that a lot of the houses in this neighborhood and on the block do not meet the side setbacks. Again, you can see that here, you can see that here, you can see that here. So because it's something that is already present in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I agree. This has a significant challenges to the site, and I mean, I don't see a way to add a closet to. I'm guessing this is a bedroom. No closet space otherwise, and then it's also just a foot difference from what the setback requirement already is, and so I would be fine approving the variance given how unique this site is. I don't think. I mean, we'd be hard pressed to find a site similar to this.
Yeah, and it's also flanked by a street, so it's like it's
Right. And a virtually unbuildable lot next door, so.
Yeah, I guess my problem with it is if we are to give that concession and feel good about it, then the thing itself needs to be that much more exemplary. And I definitely don't want to approve, I don't feel comfortable approving wood look siding if that's the exposed. Like if the form architecturally was the piece that revealed itself for others to happen to come by, and that's more modern, it's the butterfly pitch roof, I kind of care less about, but I understand the difference in material, but it could be a different material. It could just be lap siding that's vertical instead or something else. So the wood look WPC is not the reveal moment I'd like to see on the side of that when it is showing itself. It is to be exposed as a shed roof.
Does the WPC fit within the alternative accent materials that we're allowed in the guidelines?
So the guidelines don't specifically speak to wood composite materials. They speak to particle board, is the most similar thing. They generally discourage the use of vertical siding, although it has been, again, allowed as accents and sometimes on half of like a side elevation. So I believe that the board has approved LP smart siding before on other projects, and that's, I don't know, this specific material and how similar that is, but that's another wood, plastic, composite product.
Yeah, we've done that on something downtown before.
See, I would argue that this is kind of an accent piece to the house. I mean, everything else is horizontal siding, and so we have approved board and batten and vertical siding in accent situations, and personally, I like the slat look better than board and batten. I don't know what other board members feel like, but I would be fine approving this material on this particular project.
Cameron, just to comment on more description, I meant to bring a sample of it and completely spaced until I was sitting in here, but it's not a wood, it's not meant to necessarily be a wood look. It's just a slat material. So there's a slat, inset. It could be painted any color. There's not like a faux texture or a faux wood grain look on it. It's just, it has like a rough texture to it, and it can be painted any color. It's more just the vertical.
Okay. What you just described sounded like T111. It's not like that, is it? It's not like that cheap siding.
No. Like the slat depths about 1.5 inches, and then 3/4 inch inset, and then 1.5 inches.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, well, that's better. And I mean, if we're okay with houses being clad in vinyl, then how can I argue about composite, even though I'd like to argue about it? So. Okay.
I do think with the size of the addition, you could categorize this as accent siding. My hesitation with the siding is just that it is vertical, and the guidelines talk all about avoiding vertical siding generally, but it is small enough compared to the lap siding of the house that I think you could make that argument, that it's a kind of a secondary massing compared to the main house. My read of the variance issue is that it's not appropriate for us to approve a variance unless it is required in order to meet the guidelines, and you could simply have a smaller addition and meet our guidelines. And I do think there's a clear path to get a variance through BZA with this, so it just seems, that would just be my feedback on that.
Where's the downspout for that gutter that goes to the butterfly?
It's going to pour off the roof.
There
Isn't.
not drawn right now, but there would be a gutter on the side and downspout that would pick that up. So on the
It would slope toward the
closet.
elevation. Yeah, to the closet. Okay.
So that picks it up and runs it as a.
So you'd
a
have a
gutter.
little gutter over that little piece of roof, and then it would come down on the right side of that little piece of roof?
Yeah.
Okay. And then would it be booted so that it doesn't splash up onto the wood?
Yes.
The real wood at the bottom. Not the composite panel.
Pressure treated though.
Pressure treated.
Is it going to be stained?
Yeah.
It sounds like we've talked ourselves into some of it, but not I agree with Sarah on the variance. Not meeting, we're not furthering a design guideline by the variance being approved in this review.
I agree.
And I'll say, then this is going to come up later, is, the answer to that is then the project just wouldn't happen if it didn't meet, it couldn't be in the variance. That's it, and if we have to take it to BZA, then it can. But if it's not we're not making a design meet our guidelines that much better by approving it. It sounds like it doesn't meet that criteria.
Are you able to lose a foot of your room to not have to have the variance.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if we needed to cut down on the closet, that's doable, potential. I mean, I don't know if it makes the closet completely unfunctional at that point or not. But one thing I would like to mention, I don't know for sure, because, you know, I'm not here every month like you all are, but it seems like I've seen a number of cases where the variances are granted just by the nature of the approval. And is that first time I've ever heard a discussion about the hardship aspect with the DRB and infill allowances? But it seems like historically the precedent has been that you know, if it's fitting in compatibly with the context of the neighborhood, that it's not the same hardship basis. You know, it's meeting the guidelines in that sense. And to the point of the staff report, in order to, there is no other way to kind of satisfy the needs of this on the site. And if you notice on the left side of the site plan, it's already basically on a zero lot on that side, with the historic context of the development. And again, all of the other houses that have had additions over the years have, if they weren't already directly on the side setback, they've had additions that have put them within a couple feet. So we didn't even consider, you know, having to argue for the encroachment there, just because historically when we've had infill projects, it's been more just showing the nature of what's there.
So to clarify, and Christina, correct me if I'm wrong, regardless of who grants it, if there is a variance, there has to be a hardship. Is that true?
No, the DRB actually, when it acts in an infill capacity, has a little bit more flexibility.
Okay.
The variance just has to be needed to further a principle of the infill guidelines.
Okay,
The BZA, on the other hand, is the one that looks at the legal hardships.
gotcha. Okay.
Cameron had pointed to the example of the one that we had reviewed with the tree. I don't know, my logic could be not right in this, but I would see it similar as a tree. I mean, a creek, a tree, I don't know. So, I mean, I see it similarly in the sense that, I mean, it's an issue with the property, with the lot.
I think the distinction before was that we wanted the tree to stay.
Right, yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
one of the principles of our guidelines.
Yeah, I
to
see that. Yeah.
Preserve that, and I think without the addition, we're still gonna, the creek is gonna be the creek.
Right.
Regardless. We don't get to fill in the creek or cut it down. And so I think, to Sarah's point, it's, whether or not you build the addition is not furthering the concept of our guidelines in any case. It's just an addition, and we need to make sure that it matches our guidelines. So I think we're just having a difference of opinion about how that specific criteria is defined. And I'm seeing it like you're seeing it, that you can have the addition or not, but whether or not it's fulfilling the principles of our guidelines, by existing, it's not.
Well, and I do worry about the can of worms that it opens. And I am newer to the board, so I didn't know if that there was a precedent for, like, I understand the role of the DRB being able to say, here is a special case where there might be a case, and this house isn't it in my mind, but there might be a case where you legitimately can't meet the infill housing guidelines unless a variance is granted. And a porch is a great example of that. Like, if we need to be able to have this porch and it violates a front setback, for example, but that's how we get our 8 feet that is required by guidelines, I can see the argument for that. Zoning variances are permanently deeded with the property, and so I do worry about things like the fire setbacks and these other considerations that the BZA does look at more heavily, which is why they have that hardship requirement. And since this doesn't, like this, if they were just adding a full bathroom, for example, and not a bedroom, it would meet our guidelines fine, it would not need variance, and then it would be fine. And so it meets our guidelines as it is. Well, the massing, like, there's nothing about the shape that would need to change for us to be able to say it meets the guidelines.
Right.
Yeah, and I would say, from a side setback or any other setback standpoint, having documentation of what the existing condition along the street is with other houses, that's usually how that gets approved. Front setbacks are a little bit easier to line up with. Side setbacks are a little more complicated to kind of gauge what is really the setback of the houses. But if it was consistently 3-4 feet, side setback on one side of a house along a block, then that's a justification for reducing the side setback as well.
I think this would be a lot easier conversation if it wasn't also asking to be seen from the street, to be a different form than what is typically compatible. It has like a lot of pieces, so it's like, it's yelling and it's asking to have a favor. So that's the reason why we're talking about it so much. If it happened just to be the dumb shed, going the opposite way off of it, we'd probably be like, oh, that's great, 1 foot, who cares? But it's everything else, so we're dissecting it that much more.
Well, because I think it can be used as a precedent by others in the future to say, well, you let him do this, 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 and gave him a variance.
Yeah, all in one.
Why can't I have that? And I think there's a danger in that.
Well, and I think if it didn't protrude more to the side, it would actually be slightly more in line with the infill housing guidelines, because it would yield away from the existing edge of the house. And so that doesn't seem to me like a harmonious way to get to a variance. I'm curious to know precedent for the roof forms, because I do worry about setting a precedent. I could get behind the vertical siding, especially if that floor level line is lowered and the foundation line is consistent. But the roof form, and maybe you guys can speak to this with past cases, I do think you could successfully overbuild a gable onto the existing gable and not have water infiltration concerns with a roofing company that knows what they're doing. But what are the issues there? Have we approved modern additions? Is that something that comes up?
I don't think we have. I think if Logan brought a project that couldn't be seen from the street, we wouldn't even be talking about it. It's the fact that it is seen, and like it could be a crazy addition at the back, and it'd be, not contextual, and probably would be okay, because it's when it's seen from the street which triggers our review of it.
The other point to clarify is we're not here to debate whether or not it's good design. We have to just meet the guidelines, and it doesn't meet the guidelines.
That's right.
That's the whole reason we exist.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was gonna say, just your actions on a single case aren't precedent for every case going forward, because everything is case by case. You are looking at every new application has its own merits and so on. So don't get too hung up on precedent, like you're setting precedent on a roof line for this particular project, because you're not going to see this exact same house with the exact same addition again or something similar. So it's going to be a different situation.
I just want to clarify one thing on the variance issue. So there's actually 2 variances that would be needed. So you have a side setback minimum of 5, and then you also have a combined interior side setback of 15. And so since this increases the nonconformity of the interior side combined setbacks, that would be something to look at as well, because the other side of the back of the house is pretty close to the lot line. And so you would need 15 feet. So basically it would be all of that 4 feet, 2.5 inches of the addition increases that nonconformity for the combined interior side setback.
It sounds like, Logan, if there's any way to adjust the location of that closet within the riparian buffer, you might lose a window. I mean, I don't need to tell you how to do it, but it sounds like that's going to resolve all of your issues, and you're not even going to have to ask for a variance. And
Well, I think
resolves
that we could move it in and avoid the side setback variance, but then the overall variance that Mark
still
just
gonna
brought up
stand.
would.
Okay.
I mean, that stands with any.
Yeah, you're right.
Pretty much anything we do on this.
And I would say probably the overall variance is probably less of the concern than the standard side setback that is typical of the neighborhood. So I wouldn't, while it is something that the board needs to address, it is an atypical situation where one side is really close to a street, like a corner side street,
Right.
which you typically don't see. And then the other side, which is the interior side setback, can be more of a typical setback that we see along this block. So I wouldn't get hung up on the total one.
Yeah.
Yes, it needs a variance, but I would look at
And
what's a
that's-
typical side setback.
But you wouldn't be making it worse if you moved the closet it wouldn't be making it worse. So then your case for like, hey, this is just what it is, then it would be a lot easier to get over the 15 total that Mark brought up.
Variances for the combined side setbacks are relatively routine.
Yeah.
That the board approves because so many of these lots are non-conforming or difficult because they're old.
Can we look at the two houses on the other side of the unbuilt lots appear to be very close to the property line on the southwest side and don't look like
I looked at that a little bit. A lot of times on these older subdivisions or neighborhoods, the lot lines that show up on KJS are skewed. If you zoom in on the site, you can see where fence lines are, and they don't line up with the property lines. So the fence line is probably the property line.
So there is some precedent on this street nearby where the houses are very close together. And it's unlikely that the creek site will get built on. Can you scroll to what the conditions are again, please? I'm sorry. What the staff recommendation is at the end. Thank you.
So yeah, they're already asking for the roof to be revised.
Yeah.
It might make sense to ask this one to postpone so that a variance could be applied for, because that could dictate this projection beyond the original house potentially. And then if it does come back to us, then the request could be to revise the roof form to be something more compatible. But we've already had some, and then, maybe the floor line. I don't know if that's the best way to proceed.
We would be completely fine with moving the wall in to avoid that side setback. And if whatever that is, if it's a foot in, it's better than nothing for like a inset wardrobe or something. But as far as the roof line, that's a pretty big part of this. The other factors like this being a bedroom and the benefit of the creek being behind it is there's tall trees behind the house, and so it is very private. We want to have big windows back there, and we're using windows from another project and kind of designing to that size. So the roof, it would be, and again, even with the closet not encroaching as a setback, doing a gable roof would be incredibly difficult to tie in or to make look right with the stepping of the footprint, and then tying it in would require really bringing the whole exterior wall probably beyond the existing exterior wall of the house, because there's not much overhang on that side of the house. So that would be that would require taking off probably 2 or 3 feet of width for this whole thing. I mean, we're already doing like a 4 foot or 4.5 foot shower in the bathroom just to make it be able to fit a bed in this room. So we've looked at different scenarios. I think changing the roof would be incredibly difficult, but avoiding the setback variance is something that I think could just be stated as a condition of approval for this, and of course the skirting height.
I don't understand why the floor plan would have to change to put a gable roof on it. Can you?
Yeah, so if we had a gable that's kind of doing this over that plan that's there.
The gable end over the salvage windows.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, going straight out. The overhang of that, to tie that into the existing gable of the house, it would be really difficult to make that valley on the exterior side of the house work, because then the gable overhang would be going beyond the side of the existing roof. So it would be a really funky condition to have that because like, I think I didn't really look too deeply at the previous project, but I'm assuming the exterior wall of that addition was not out beyond the exterior wall of the original house, and the overhang of that gable is probably more than 1 inch, whereas in this case, even if we were to push the wall aligned with the exterior wall of the house, the overhang on that side is only like 1 inch. And so we would have a gable with a very sharp, like no overhang, which would be kind of strange with the rest of the house, I think.
So the existing addition to the house that's to the left of this, if you're looking at the plan, is a gable.
No, that's a shed roof going in the just opposite direction of this one. That one is, that shed roof
That
is.
shed roof. Okay, that's what
yeah.
I'm thinking of.
That's stepping down
I see.
3 feet, so the
I
floor
see.
level there is much lower.
But like, again, like I was trying to say earlier, like you've created that, your own problem with the design. So if it was like, if you had in your book of tricks, when you were starting to design, like we can't do anything but a gable, you probably would have figured out a gable.
Well,
But because it's required by the guidelines, so it's saying, okay, we're not gonna get this passed unless we do it. But what happened is you're like, well, maybe we can break it and do this shed instead, and then like it became its own thing that we're now talking about, and it's something that I'm trying to focus on more in these reviews of like, are we being asked for forgiveness or being asked for approval? And like, this hasn't even been built yet, and it's like, are we being asked for forgiveness already for something that could have been thought of while it was being designed?
Yeah, because I don't think that the gable roof will require to tie into that low slope shed roof. The low slope could tie into the wall of the addition.
No, I'm referring to tying into the main house would be, that's where the problem with the overhang would come into play at.
Is
If
it
it's-
because it's a metal roof, or what's the?
Because of the overhangs, like teeing into the old house, if the wall of the existing house, if the wall of the addition is coming out beyond the exterior wall of the house, then the valley of that gable is kind of a strange condition to be creating coming off there. Whereas with this design, we've created a gap from that, and we're able to kind of go off of it from there. And in a way, yeah, the restricting factor here, of course, is the creek. Like, this is very different than what we originally planned for this, but getting into the RBZ, the footprint of this just got really small. There's no other location to add a room on the site unless we went into the front of the house, which I think would be significantly more invasive to the existing house. So by doing this on the rear, responding to the conditions that are there with the existing roof, we did determine that the shed was the best way to respond to that. But again, if we were to do a gable off the back, it would require making this significantly smaller, and it's already incredibly small for what it needs to serve. So.
I think it's time for a motion.
Are we able, so we're able to approve flat roofs, but not butterfly roofs? Is that
Again,
accurate?
the board could choose to approve a butterfly roof. The design guidelines don't say it should be a gable or shed. It just says that the roof form should complement the existing house. So in the staff report, I mentioned that if this was a mid-century modern house or something that was more contemporary in style, that a roof like this could be appropriate. However, this is a minimal traditional. You don't see roof forms like this. This shed roof here you see on that addition is very standard on a lot of the houses in that neighborhood.
What year was this house built?
It shows up in the 1959 aerial.
So butterfly roofs aren't atypical to this time period. It is, although it's atypical to this neighborhood, a ranch-style house, it's not uncommon to see a butterfly addition to a ranch-style house. And so, although we haven't approved one in the past, I think this specific location in the neighborhood, and given that they can't really build behind their house, there's large trees that will always be there. It's really only viewed as you enter the cul-de-sac, and there's not sidewalks, so it's not like there's a lot of neighbors walking into this space as it is. I'm fine approving this butterfly roof as it is. I think I would look more closely at it if it were another house in the neighborhood of this kind. But given I'm not particularly fine with the variance, given all the discussion we've had. But I think we as a design board have the ability to approve a unique design like this. And I personally like the design over a lot of the designs we approve month to month. And then also the last point, given Mike's comment of not getting hung up on precedent, creating precedent, I think it gives us a unique opportunity to do something a little different here.
I just think that the constraints are the opportunities in design, and the constraint with this is you've got to meet a design guideline, and the constraints were just eschewed to say, well, what if I can just see if I can get this across? I'm a modernist architect. I do modern design all day long. But if I was given a context that said you have to meet these guidelines to be in this area, it's the same stuff that we go on day in and day out in downtown that people are always trying to skirt and say, well, we're going to do this. Let's see if we can get it through. It's a waste of time to talk about it. And if it could just be a pass that was given trying to actually adhere to the guidelines, I don't see an effort that was trying to adhere to our guidelines. I see one that happens to be, it almost was like you were caught, like, oh no, it is seen from the street, and oh no, it encroaches on the variance, so now here I am.
Well,
So-
I think we need to clarify again that, like Melinda said, it's not against the guidelines to have a single slope butterfly roof. What we're discussing and what we may disagree with is whether or not a single slope butterfly roof in this application is appropriate or not with this building. It doesn't have to be a gable.
That's right. It can be a shed. It can be something else.
Right.
For reference, the property assessor records say that the house was built in 1957, and the exact text of the design guidelines read the roof line and roofing materials should complement the original house.
So we're deciding if it complements.
Right.
But the shed isn't really possible given that you'd have to step down to make the ceiling height work. So really the only opportunity is to do the gable, right? Is that what?
I mean, I
Or a
think
flat
Cameron's
roof.
point is that it could be anything, and this is the one that we're talking about today. But if we don't like this one and we don't think it's compatible, then we can say that the roof line needs to be amended.
Well, it sounds like Tony has a motion. My motion would be to postpone it and give Logan a chance to consider all this feedback and let us review it again.
I'm going to second that.
Is that a
Can we-
motion?
Yes,
Okay.
Can we get a specific date on that postponement?
30 days.
Okay, we have a motion to postpone for 30 days to reconsider the design.
Hold on just one second. Logan, do we feel like 30 days is realistic?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, okay.
30.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I-
Okay,
no.
postponement carries. Thank you. Sure. Yeah, we just didn't know. Okay, we have a constraint that has just come to my attention where on the last case for today, which is 3547 Oswald Street, we have a recusal and we won't have a quorum with that person missing. So rather than wait until the end of this, I'm just letting everybody know that we won't be able to review 9F25IH today. That's 3547 Oswald Street.
Do you need to postpone it right now?
I mean, you can, does it need to be more than 30 days?
No, I mean, it's ready for today, but if there's not a quorum.
Right.
Then it would be set to next month, right?
Yeah, it would be automatically postponed to next month. I'm just asking, is that realistic? That's, okay, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to postpone 9F25IH until next month when we have a quorum. Thank you. Okay, with that said, we're going to move on to 1219 New York Avenue, which is 10C24IH.
Okay. Last year, the applicant originally proposed a duplex on this property, which was ultimately postponed. They have now revised the request to a single-family house. The proposed front setback is not specified, but appears to be around 20 feet. The average front setback of the block face is 21 feet. The final site plan should include the front setback, which should be between 16 and 26 feet. The site plan features trees and parking accessed via the alley, which meets design guidelines. The block to receive new construction is characterized by craftsman bungalows, modified Queen Anne cottages, and some infill construction. The 29-foot 4-inch wide by 62-foot deep house is slightly narrower and deeper than the context, but it is generally proportionate to the dimensions of the lot and other buildings on the block. The design features a 5-foot 7-inch deep front porch supported by 10-inch square columns, which is similar in scale and design to others on the block. However, the depth should be increased to 8 feet to meet the design guidelines. The windows and door are compatible with the context. A window should be added to the rear elevation, which currently has none. The 10-12 pitch front gable roof meets the design guidelines and features details that align with the context. However, the pitch is steeper than most of the houses on the block, which are primarily craftsman bungalows. The guidelines discourage the use of vertical siding and the use of different primary siding materials across elevations, so the board and batten siding on the facade should be replaced with horizontal siding. The facade features brick veneer on the block foundation. The foundation on all elevations should be clad in brick veneer, parge-coated, or clad in stucco. With that, staff is recommending approval of Certificate 10C24AH, subject to the following conditions. The front setback be between 16 and 26 feet and be included on the final site plan. The final site plan to meet city engineering standards. The front porch depth be increased to 8 feet with revised elevations provided if a hand railing is required during permitting. One window be added to the rear elevation. The primary siding material on the facade be revised to horizontal siding using board and batten as an accent only and depicted in final elevation drawings. The foundation on the side and rear elevations to be clad in brick veneer, parge-coated, or clad in stucco, and retaining rake mold trim, partial cornice returns, and eave overhangs as depicted. I do want to note that the applicant has provided revised elevation drawings and a site plan that incorporate all the conditions of the staff recommendation. So just let me know if y'all would like to see that.
I think we would. Yes, please. Is the applicant present?
He should be on Zoom.
On Zoom, okay.
Okay, maybe you do need to unmute, sorry. Unmute your computer, Unmute your computer, yeah.
Mr. Chima, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Sorry.
Can you give us your name and address, please?
Yeah, it's Ross Chima at 649 Running Brook Drive, Strawberry Plains, Tennessee, 37871.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add to Melinda's comments?
No?
Okay, we're going to look at your revised drawings and then we'll open it up to board discussion.
Okay.
Does this show the brick on all sides of the foundation now?
Looks like it.
It just mentions parge coat or stucco over the foundation wall. It doesn't specify brick. The brick is still on the front elevation.
Can you clarify if you intend to use brick all the way around or parge coat?
I'll do stucco on the sides and brick on the front.
Okay, I think that's one of the things that we typically have a problem with is that it's inconsistent all the way around. And so we need you to make a decision if it's going to be brick all the way around or parge coat all the way around. But the half and half version is not typically something we approve.
Okay, I'll just do stucco all the way around.
Okay.
Yeah, and I bring that up only because I've seen an infill house recently done that way and was saddened by seeing it. So,
yeah.
And I know we didn't approve that, so I'm trying to make sure that we're clarifying that with all our reviews.
Yep. Does anybody else have any other comments?
Can you clarify what changed with this revision? Is it just a new plan?
So
What's siding?
Yes, so he addressed all of the conditions on the staff recommendation, which again, we're asking for the front setback to be specified. That was done. Increasing the front porch depth, that is reflected in the revised floor plans. Again, revising the primary siding material on the facade, and then having the finish on the foundation.
So just to clarify, we are reviewing these drawings that have already been.
No, you all are reviewing these drawings that were originally submitted. The applicant just went above and beyond and responded to the staff recommendation and provided these plans.
Gotcha. Okay.
Was the rear window added on the new?
Yes, it was.
Yep.
So if we're happy with the revised drawings, we would be approving based on staff recommendation.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, except you might want to change the staff recommendation to indicate that the foundation have the same finish on all sides. Right now, it is just asking that the side and rear elevations also have a finish on the foundation.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'd motion to approve per staff recommendations with the amendment that the number 6, that the foundation have a consistent material on all sides.
I would like to add that the gable vents be maintained. This is a steeper pitch roof than we normally see, and I think if those were to go away, it would adversely affect the look of the front.
You're okay with that amendment?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one carries. Thank you. We're going to move on, and I'll just let everybody know that we need to be done with this room by 6:30, so let's be efficient with our comments. Next up is 470 Hiawassee Avenue, which is 9A25 IH.
Right. This application is for a new one-story single-family house. The average front setback of the block face is 25.4 feet, and the house is proposed to be set 21 feet from the front lot line, which is appropriate. Parking is accessed via the alley, which meets the guidelines. The final site plan should include a tree in the front yard, in the front and rear yard, and which should be the existing mature tree if at all possible. The block to receive new construction is characterized by modified Queen Anne cottages, minimal traditionals, and infill construction. The 28-foot wide by 46-foot deep house is generally proportionate to the dimensions of the lot and other houses on the block and is similar in scale. The design features a 6-foot deep front porch with a front gable roof featuring shingles in the gable field and a header that is supported by 2 square posts. The porch depth should be increased to 8 feet and the post should be at minimum 8 by 8. The windows and door are compatible with the context, and all elevations feature sufficient transparency. The 612 pitch roof is the minimum typically approved by the guidelines. The materials meet the guidelines as well, but the exterior of the slab foundation should be parge coated or clad in stucco. Staff is recommending approval of Certificate 9A25IH, subject to the following conditions. The final site plan to meet city engineering standards with minor revisions to parking placement to be approved by staff. The final site plan to include a tree in the front and rear yard, retaining the existing mature tree if at all possible. The foundation to be parge coated or clad in stucco, and the siding to be clapboard style with an overlap, and the front porch depth be revised to 8 feet, and the supports to be at least 8 by 8.
Thank you, Melinda. Is the applicant present? Nope. Okay. I think based on previous meetings where the applicant is not present, we will postpone. And we also have a time constraint, so.
I agree.
Okay.
I make a motion to postpone for 30 days.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, just real quick before I finalize that, to the next meeting, 30 days?
30, she said 30 days.
Oh, you did. Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one carries. Thank you.
Could I say one thing? If the staff were to, if they were to connect with them on that, one thing I noticed in that is it did call for a slab, and on the street view, there's no adjacent houses that are on a slab. So I don't know if that would maybe be something to consider if you were to speak with them.
That is something that will come up next time.
Yeah, my only comment on that is that this exact same design did come to the board for review previously. The applicant for this is Habitat for Humanity, and they have a 0-step entry to all of their projects, which Mr. Staley, who's the applicant, expressed last time. So I can give them that feedback, but I believe that would be their response.
Gotcha. Okay. And that, I'm assuming, is in line with their standards for accessibility. Okay.
Just real quick before we move from it then, this has a site plan submitted with it, correct? It shows the topography, so we could know if, so the zero entry needs to be from the back, from where they're coming in on their car. So as much as I absolutely, it's a requirement, and also equitable design is absolutely imperative and important, this is, these are happening a lot, and it's a conundrum of how do we still get the quality and the look that we're hoping to have with those requirements. And really where it comes down to is the front porch. The front porch has no guardrails, and it has no articulation or height with that base, and it makes it look like flat and pancake and lifeless, and I'm seeing them all over. And I absolutely, again, understand the requirements and why, but not that we can sit here and draw over it, but I would be very impressed to see a design that tried to still incorporate some design quality to it that showed that.
Yep.
I might just be talking to myself.
Agreed and
but-
noted.
Yeah.
I'll share that feedback with the applicant.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to 225 East Oldham Avenue, which is case number 9C25IH.
All right. This duplex was approved last November with case 11H24IH, and it is returning to the board for review after deviations from the approved plans were identified during final inspection. The foundation height was increased, which resulted in significant modifications to the front porches, specifically the staircases. The rear patio design was revised to add a raised wooden deck with a dividing wall. The applicant is also requesting approval to add a gravel pad access from the alley. This is a middle housing project, and the approved plans did not include parking as it is not required. The proposed 40-foot wide by 35-foot deep gravel parking pad at the rear of the lot, accessed via the alley, meets the design guidelines and middle housing standards, although it is large in scale. The board should discuss the size of the parking. The modifications to the rear patio meet the design guidelines. Guidelines recommend that foundation heights, quote, be comparable to historic houses in the neighborhood. And most of the houses on this side of the street feature raised foundations to account for the slope. The approved plans included a 1-foot 8-inch tall foundation measured at the facade. The applicant reached out to staff in February, soon after the permit was issued, to request to increase the foundation to approximately 3.5 feet tall, which staff approved since the height was comparable to the other houses on the block. However, the building was constructed with a 7-foot tall foundation measured at the left corner of the facade, making the structure significantly tall in scale with the block that only features 1-story houses. Shrubs should be planted at the corners of the foundation on the facade to reduce the visibility of the foundation from the street. The guidelines state that, quote, porch posts and railings should be like those used in the historic era of the neighborhood's development, and that, quote, porches should be proportional to original porches on the block. The height, form, and detail of the constructed front porches is incompatible with the historic houses nearby and significantly increases the visual scale of the structure. The footprint and design of the staircases should be revised to minimize its size. In the opinion of staff, the porches should be accessed via a central staircase where most of the height is concentrated. That leads to a landing with few steps to the individual porches, which will reflect the designs on the historic houses on the block. The pressure-treated wood decking used to screen the staircase is incompatible with the context and should be replaced with lattice screening or masonry to make the front porch design more compatible with the neighborhood. The pressure-treated wood porch supports and hand railing should be painted or stained. The guidelines for multi-unit housing emphasize that buildings, quote, be designed in scale and context with the early architectural features of the neighborhood. The board should discuss whether additional architectural elaboration on the front porch is necessary to make the design more compatible. The board should discuss the size of the proposed parking and methods to reduce the visual scale of the building within its historic context. Along with any necessary revisions or conditions, staff recommends approval of Certificate 9C25IH subject to the following conditions. Shrubs be planted at the corner of the facade to screen the foundation, with placement and selection to be approved by staff. The design of the staircases be revised to concentrate the height in one central staircase, leading to a landing from which the individual units can be accessed, with drawings to be approved by staff. And the screening of the front porches and staircase be revised to lattice or masonry to be approved by staff. I also want to note that the applicant has already provided revised elevation drawings that reflect the staff recommendation, which you can see here. And he should be available on Zoom.
Yes, I'm here.
Can you give us your name and address, please?
Yeah, this is Tay Cho, 1140 Bell Pond Avenue, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37932.
Are you the owner or the contractor?
I'm the owner, and my contractor is also on the call.
Okay. Do you have anything to add to Melinda's comments?
No. I mean, other than, we recognize, along the way, just some oversight and misses on our end of projecting the grade and the type of dirt that we would hit, and, some of those dynamics that I guess we don't fully know until we get into the thick of it. And we were not able to, lessen the height of the foundation with the grade as much as we were hoping for. And as far as the staff recommendations, we're totally good with all of that, and willing to make all the adjustments.
Okay, thank you for that. I just want to say that with the right planning and design, you could know this ahead of time. And so I think getting into it and having to troubleshoot these issues with actual construction rather than planning, it is a lot more expensive and time consuming. So I would encourage you in the future to make sure that you have a thorough site plan and topography planned ahead of time. Because this is a pretty sticky issue at this point. So we'll open it up to conversation on the board.
I just want to say, I actually walked by this in July, and I thought it looked bad then. I think it looks like being on the street and being in person, the context of this, personally, I think it looks so much worse in person. And it's really a shame that, I don't know, that this is the case on this street.
Yeah, I second that. I mean, I haven't walked past it, but I live near it, and this is horrible. I mean, that's the best way to say it. I mentioned this previously about the asking for forgiveness is it's really it's unfortunate that that's where we're at. We've had this happen before where we're being, oh, what do I do? You're not going to make me knock it down. So here we are trying to make not lemons out of lemonade, or whatever it is, lemonade out of lemons. I don't even really know what to say.
I think in an effort to move the discussion toward a resolution, I'll say that I appreciate the staff recommendations to try to find a workable solution, but I don't think this is approvable without seeing a complete redesign of the front elevation of this project. I mean, what's shown here is somewhat of a Band-Aid, but to be honest, not good enough. And having, I don't know what that dimension is,
7 feet at least.
7 feet of lattice on the front elevation that's already high above the street is not an acceptable design solution.
Agreed.
We need to have at least one other line or level that breaks up that enormous height between grade and the floor level of the house. And so that could be that you have a more prominent intermediate landing between the entry landing and grade, something that happens about halfway, which would require a redesign of the stair. And to Suzanne's point, we need a drawing that shows what that is. But I do think at least something midpoint would help with that. Or if it's some sort of extra foundation wall or retaining wall that is an accent material like brick or stucco, I forget what the existing foundation is, but that is a secondary layer to cut down on the visual height going up to that super tall porch.
Yeah, something in the front of like even a planter. I mean, something that starts to break that scale down. I'd be interested to know if we have this. I see the adjacent homes next to it, but how did they deal with the height? And if we're here, it is what it is. But like if it's the same comment of like, well, we had to do it, then why did every other house adjacent to it not have to do it?
Right. And where did these plans come from? Was there a designer involved?
Yes.
Are they available for input?
I mean, not at this moment.
I think she means in the discussion of the redesign.
Yeah, I mean, can they weigh in on what their opinion of how to resolve this issue is, or have they weighed in?
No, and I guess if I could speak after your all's commentary, and I think it's valid and fair. The reality is, I think I'm not quite sure who it was. I'm not familiar with the names on the board, but someone had mentioned, that he had spoken earlier about this idea of asking for forgiveness later, because this notion of, well, you can't make me tear it down. For anyone that actually knows me, and Lindsay can vouch for me over the years of the projects I've done in historic and infill, we've always been above board by the book, done whatever we can to adhere to every regulation, stipulation, restriction, design criteria. And the way that I go about doing things is not try to get away with something. I mean, in fact, this ended up costing us a heck of a lot more than I ever wanted to spend on that foundation. And so I just want to, the notion of, our attempt to just get away with something, that's not accurate. And so I'm going to stand for that. Now, as far as the actual outcome of the situation and what it looks like, I mean, we would agree it's not what we had hoped for, and I can agree with you guys on that. As far as a complete redesign, staff already submitted one. You guys are asking for input from, an architect or what have you, but it seems clear to me that it's a subjective situation here. And so when I rushed a new drawing per staff's recommendation once I saw online the notes, and I rushed a new drawing for this, thinking that would be the design that could be approved, but you guys are not wanting that either. I'm not really sure what I can come up with on my end without having, more clear direction from you all. Like, we would love to, be able to adhere to whatever you guys are wanting, because trust me when I say, like, I want to move forward from this, and you will see in the next case that I have already applied lessons learned from this, and I hope that you guys will see the effort made. But in this current file, if you guys are saying that this is terrible, ugly, we got to do something, but you come up with it, and then we'll let you know if it looks good. It puts me in a lose-lose situation here. And so I would love input, more direct input. I would love a very specified design outlook, and we'd be happy to do it to the best of our ability.
thank you for those comments. I just want to clarify a couple of things. As a board, we can't design a solution for you. We have guidelines, and we're here to uphold the guidelines that we are given. And so the onus is on you to provide an appropriate design. I think that the design solutions that were provided by the staff were made in good faith and with goodwill, and I appreciate your quick turnaround on that, but it's just not an appropriate solution that we can approve. So Sarah here on the board has already made some suggestions about how to break down the scale at the base of the building. I think also landscape solutions might be appropriate, but again, that's up to you and your designer to solve and bring back to us. And it would be important for you to review the guidelines for yourself and make sure that they're in alignment before you resubmit.
The most concrete direction that we can provide, assuming everyone agrees with this guidance, is to the strong horizontal line that that porch has at the skirt board around the porch level. There needs to be another one of those mid-height, somewhere between that existing finished floor and grade. And so if you can produce a design that meets that by giving us another strong visual platform, whether it be a site wall or planter or a landing that is more terrace-like, that would be a likely and approvable solution if we can see it drawn and proven.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to stay on the parking to talk about that for a minute. Is it permeable parking or is it solid concrete? It says uniform gravel?
It's gravel due to impervious surface restrictions.
That's what I was hoping it was going to be, so you don't affect stormwater as much with impermeable surface. And with the middle housing standard, being that you can have reduced parking, what dictated the size of the parking lot that you are trying to put there?
The size, just on a practical level, that would fit right around four vehicles there.
And per middle housing, it's required to have 2?
For middle housing, there's the requirement here is none because it's less than a quarter mile from a public transit
right,
stop.
Which I understand that too, but it's again like we're working backwards if we're starting to build middle housing, but then not capitalize on the concessions that were given with the parking minimums and maximums. So that's unfortunate.
Well,
do you guys see back parking as a negative? I'm trying to understand that.
Well, I think overall the concept is to reduce the amount of parking overall and the impermeable surface overall, but I do understand the need that if you're renting a brand new unit, you want to put a car somewhere, and I think that's a valid request.
I was gonna say, at the same time, I mean, this street has, the street parking on the front side of this on Oldham, I mean, there's plenty of street parking.
Yeah, it definitely has, a good bit of street parking relative to some other streets.
They'll have to hike quite a bit to get up there, though.
Get your steps in.
And I'll say that probably from staff's perspective, it was probably more like the depth of the parking than it is the parking being there, because it's about a 40 by 35 or so.
Right, if it's 4
parking
cars,
space, so.
It's 4 cars, then it needs to be 19 feet, probably.
I'm sorry, say it again? 4 cars would be 19 feet wide?
Right, Mike had mentioned the depth of the parking, not necessarily the overall scale. And
Are there some restrictions on what would be described as a curb cut from the alley? Can you just have parking right off the alley, 4 spaces?
Yeah, just, I did speak to Matt Johnston before even implementing this on the site plan, and he looked at the lot with me on the phone, and he acknowledged that this would be a allowable situation, so.
yeah, from what I understand with the direct off the alley access, it's 45-degree parking. You can do in and back out into the alley actually and keep using it, so you don't have to have turnaround depth in that.
I think you still have to be 5 feet off the alley though for the start of the parking.
5 feet?
Yeah.
Correct, so there's a 5-foot concrete curb there that I'm planning for.
Okay, we need to be mindful of the next 2 cases because we're running out of time. I think it's time for a motion on this one.
What do we?
Postpone for redesign.
Yeah, I motion to postpone per staff recommendations and and comment given by the board to present an alternate design
Can we get a date on
for
that?
30 days.
Is 30 days suitable for y'all on the
Yes.
Zoom
yes.
call? Okay.
Yep, as soon as possible. And then is the parking also, are you guys requesting a redesign of the parking? I'm a little bit confused on that.
Staff
I'm
can
not.
staff can provide some guidance from the minimum required depth for middle housing standard. What is presented is exceeding the minimum.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So we just want it to comply with the minimum standard, and we understand that you need 4 parking spaces to make your plan work.
Okay.
So we have a motion.
Second.
Are you okay? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one carries. Thank you. We're going to move on to 320 Hiawassee Avenue. That's 9D25 IH. And we have 15 minutes to do 2 cases.
Okay. Before we move on, just so I can properly assist the applicant, are y'all okay with the replacing, again, we drafted the staff recommendation looking at the other houses on the street, which tended to have one central staircase with either lattice or brick screening. So I understand that y'all want to add the landing. Are y'all okay with having this centralized massing staircase and with the lattice? Or are you all also wanting changes to that? Just so I know how to advise them.
I personally am not okay with the lattice.
Agreed. But
It's a
I do
facade
like the central
material.
stair. I think that makes a lot of sense. It's also a dead spot between them that I think could be utilized.
I think the difference is that it's so tall and so unwelcoming from the street that's the problem.
Would you prefer the absence of screening? Again, we're looking at the design guidelines, which say context of the street. And if you look at the street, it's all going to be lattice or masonry. So are y'all wanting an alternative screening for below that, or would you like the screening to be omitted?
My initial understanding was that was the front porch was supposed to be block. Like looking back at the November 2024 notes, I'm not an architect, so
I think it's really hard to
But-
say, and I know that you're trying to provide clear direction, but it really needs to be studied, and an appropriate, well-balanced, approachable design needs to be made, and I don't know how to do that here in the next 10 minutes.
But that's feedback. If it's lattice, then it's a solid material. That's some directive. If it's not lattice, I mean, so
Yeah.
that
y'all
would be the
count
study.
The decking that they have right now is a solid material.
That was what was asked of me at the onset of approval, many months ago. So that's why we did the decking.
I think screening makes sense, and I don't know if this is protocol, but it seems like if you're going to revise the design, maybe you show a few screening options,
Yeah, and I do think that
vertical and horizontal.
if I were designing it, I would want it to be more aligned with a landscape solution and more massive, more planting, and less light frame construction.
Agreed.
Thank you. Sorry to hold us up.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
All right, so this application is for a 2-story duplex. The applicant intends to use the middle housing standards, and review occurs during permitting. The DRB review focuses on how the project meets the infill housing design guidelines. However, some elements of middle housing review may trigger revisions that would require additional review by the board. The duplex is proposed to be set 25 feet from the front lot line, with the front porches at 16 feet 10 inches. The average setback of the block face is 29.6 feet, with the adjacent houses at 23 and 33 feet, and their porches at 19 and 26 feet, respectively. The proposed front setback would require a variance via COA, since the porches exceed their permitted encroachments. The front setback should be increased to align with the porches of the adjacent houses, with final measurements to be approved by staff to avoid a variance. Parking is a 36-foot wide by 40-foot deep gravel pad at the rear of the lot, accessed via a driveway from the primary street, which meets design guidelines for placement. The parking pad is large in scale and exceeds the number of spaces required under middle housing. The board should discuss the size of the proposed parking. The final site plan should include a tree in the front and rear yards. The block to receive new construction is characterized by craftsman bungalows, minimal traditionals, shotguns, and modified queen anne cottages with some infill construction. The 32-foot 6-inch wide by 50-foot deep duplex is compatible in width and depth with original houses in the neighborhood and meets middle housing standards. Guidelines recommend that multi-unit housing be similar in height to original houses on the street. All houses on the block are one-story, except for a two-story house built in 2000 and a few houses with a basement level. The building is taller than the context and features a 2-foot 6-inch tall foundation at the facade, which increases with the downward slope of the site. The board should discuss the height and whether additional measures should be taken to reduce its visual scale. Guidelines recommend that porches have similar proportions and porch supports to the context, and that multifamily housing incorporate architectural details present in the neighborhood. The duplex features an 8-foot 2-inch deep front porch with 6-inch square columns and decking screening the piers. Most of the historic houses on the block feature tapered craftsman-style columns or larger square columns with trim on a raised brick or concrete foundation. The support should be at least 8 by 8, and the supports and screening should be painted or stained. Additional details should be incorporated into the front porch design to reflect the historic context to be approved by staff. The side gable roofline has a 412 pitch, and 612 is the minimum recommended by the guidelines. However, the front gable massings on the facade feature a 612 pitch, and the lower pitch reduces the height and visual scale of the building. The windows and doors are compatible with the context, and all elevations feature sufficient transparency. The materials are appropriate, but the concrete block should be parge-coated, clad in stucco, or clad in brick veneer. They also provided these topographic drawings of it with the grade. The board should discuss the size of the parking, the front porch design, and the building's height within the neighborhood context. Along with any necessary revisions or conditions, staff recommends approval of Certificate 9D25IH, subject to the following conditions. The final site plan to meet city engineering standards with major changes to return to the board. The front setback be increased with final measurements to be approved by staff, meeting all relevant standards of Article 4.6 and Article 9.3J with minor revisions to be approved by staff. The final site plan to include a native or naturalized shade tree in the front and rear yards. The porch supports to be at least 8 by 8, and the supports and screening to be painted or stained, and additional detail to be added to the front porch design to reflect the historic context to be approved by staff.
Thank you, Melinda. Are these the same folks? Okay. Do you guys have anything to add to Melinda's comments?
Just to mention the things that staff had mentioned, size of parking pad, similar idea, but again, specifically measured out to be within impervious surface restrictions with the gravel. And on that street, as you guys are probably aware, there really isn't much parking available there on the street. Secondly, the height. Melinda mentioned the lower roof pitch in 4/12. That was specifically as a byproduct of lessons learned on Oldham, and so we lowered it, but also maintained 6/12 on the front gables, as Melinda mentioned, to offer multiple slopes for aesthetic, reasons. And then I don't quite remember what else was said, but you can see here, we tried to be more intentional about the topography and how that affects grade, recognizing that final grade is subject to on the field, and how that plays out, but we were really doing the best that we can to adapt from prior lessons learned.
Okay, thank you for that. Is the intent to provide 4 parking spaces?
Yes, ma'am, that is the intent.
Okay. So I think just in the interest of time, the overall sentiment is that we don't want too much, I know it's gravel, but too much sort of parking paved surface. And we'd like for you to work with city engineering to make sure that your 4 spaces are as small as they can possibly realistically be.
Okay.
Do we have any other discussion?
Can there be some clarification given about why 4 and 12, the applicant said something about 4 and 12 being more appropriate, even though the guidelines say 6 and 12? Did I misunderstand
trying to
that?
make it not too tall.
I was not saying it was appropriate. I did not say that. I was just saying that we lowered it purposely as a direct lesson learned from the previous, as far as height is concerned. And I thought the regulation was that as long as you have multiple roof pitches, that it would be acceptable.
I think in this case that makes sense because the 6 and 12 in the front is what you see and experience most, and so I think that's a good compromise.
He was referencing the middle housing standards, which require 612 if you only have one. The infill housing, it states that it has to be 612, but again, these massings as well as the porch roofs are 612.
Yeah, I mean, and I welcome, I mean, the height is a result of getting higher density on our streets and having a duplex. That's the beautiful part about the middle housing. So the height is less of an issue. It just is unfortunate. We were just talking about the last version of this, and we're trying to review this now. So, but yeah, to this project's calling, it's the height doesn't bother me. The framed porch, rather than again having a solid base at the bottom, is that contextual for the other entries to the rest of the street? Because this one, again, if it actually is not 7 feet tall, should have the ability to have masonry or block foundation to be able to hold the porch and it be front porch, entry porch.
Yeah, I think, again, we need one more to do one more today, and I don't want to cut this short intentionally, but I think we need to make a motion based on what our preference for this one will be aligned with the guidelines and what staff has already recommended.
Okay, I motion to approve per staff recommendations.
Do you want to add amendment about the porch?
Do you want to add the amendment about reducing the parking size?
With the amendment to work with staff to reduce the parking size to the absolute minimum required for 4 parking spaces.
Do we have any other comments or amendments? Or a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank
you. Okay, last one is 0 Ohio Avenue. That is 9H25IH.
Okay. This case is for a new 4-unit townhouse and revisions to the site plan for the adjacent 4-unit townhouse that was approved by the board in June. The applicant intends to use the middle housing standards, and review occurs during permitting. The DRB review focuses on how the project meets infill housing design guidelines. However, some elements of middle housing review may trigger revisions that would require additional review by the board. The site plan submitted for 6C25IH featured a large parking pad accessed via the unimproved alley, and the board added a condition that the parking area be reduced in size. The revised site plan contains parking for both buildings. Parking is proposed to be accessed via a shared driveway entered from Ohio Avenue that splits at the rear of the lot to access parking spaces for each building. An alternate site plan proposes access from the unimproved alley, and that's in y'all's packet, but it's not up here. Parking for lots with unimproved alleys is typically reviewed using the standards for lots without alleys, which recommend that parking be 1 lane that extends 20 feet past the facade. In the opinion of staff and city engineering, the shared driveway accessed via Ohio Avenue is appropriate and fulfills condition 7 of 6C25IH. Any major deviations to the approved site plans and plat should return to the board for review. The proposed 25-foot front setback will need to be revised to between 14.9 and 24.9 feet to meet middle housing standards. The site plan indicates, quote, landscape to be installed near the parking area. The final site plan should include the existing trees at the rear of the lot that are outside the parking area, at least 1 tree in the front and rear yards, and any landscaping required to meet city engineering and zoning standards. The block to receive new construction features shotgun houses, minimal traditionals, ranch houses, and infill construction. The proposed building does not incorporate many details which align with the architectural context as recommended by the guidelines. Additional design elements will also be required to meet the middle housing standards. The building is 25 feet 11 inches tall on the facade, and the rear of the building is 34 feet tall with the basement along grade. The block features houses with 1 story or 1 story with a basement level garage, so the building is significantly taller than the context. The board approved the same building height with 6C25IH. Guidelines recommend that multi-unit construction incorporate, quote, bays or breaks in the front facade to minimize scale. The front gable massings help break up the large rectangular building, but the design would benefit from additional elements to minimize the height and scale, particularly on the side elevations. The board should discuss whether additional design measures to minimize the height are appropriate. The proposed entry stoop should feature at least 8x8 posts to make the supports compatible with the context. Guidelines recommend that windows and door styles be similar to historic houses on the block with similar proportions and positioning and similar ratio of solid to void. The proposed single-hung windows and half-light panel door are compatible with the context. The location of the single-hung windows on the side elevations should be aligned. The small fixed windows on the side elevations are not compatible with historic window forms. Revisions should be made to the side elevation window patterns to address the 3 fixed windows. The roof pitch should be increased to 612 to meet the design guidelines. If the foundation is concrete block or slab, it should be parge coated, clad in stucco, or clad in brick veneer. Design guidelines discourage the use of vertical siding. The board approved horizontal siding as the primary siding material on 6C25IH, except to allow siding variation on the side elevations with horizontal siding at the base. The proposed 4-unit townhouse building is identical to the adjacent 4-unit townhouse building approved by the board, and no revisions were incorporated to meet the conditions of approval from that case. The design should be revised to differentiate the 2 buildings to be approved by staff. With that, staff is recommending approval of Certificate 9H25IH, subject to the following conditions. Bear with me. Meeting all relevant standards of Article 4.6 and Article 9.3.I with minor revisions to be approved by staff, revisions to the front setback to meet Article 4.6, revisions to side elevation window design and placement to be approved by staff, roof pitch to be revised to at least 612, siding to be clapboard style with an overlap with board and batten used as an accent, and to allow siding variation on the side elevations with horizontal siding as the base. The final site plan to retain the existing trees as much as possible, including at least 1 tree in the front and rear yard of both townhouse buildings. Approval of the site plan option featuring the shared driveway, with final site plan meeting city engineering standards and any major deviations to the approved site plans and plat, including the closure of the Ambrose Street right-of-way, to return to the board for review. The foundation to be parge coated, clad in stucco, or clad in brick veneer. The porch post to be at least 8 by 8, and incorporating differentiation between the 2 adjacent townhouse buildings to be approved by staff.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Melinda.
All right, let's look quick. So we didn't make any of the
Well,
changes to.
Excuse me, just for a second, can you give us your name and phone number?
Eric Forstall, Ball
I mean,
Design
address.
Services, 1920 Greenland Way.
Thank you, go ahead.
Blah, 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 blah. Okay.
You know what I mean.
All the recommendations from the previous approval that we did in our C6, or whatever, for the first lot, we didn't make any changes significantly to the building at this time. Our main focus was getting the right-of-way closure, which we just finally received. Item 7 in the conditions of approval said we had to come back with the approved site plan, which is what we're doing now. So, just as of Friday, we received the draft version of the revised landscape requirements. We do know that now, so we are going to have to work with staff to make minor revisions to the site plan to accommodate these new requirements. We changed the parking in the back, eliminating the right-of-way parking, because as a process of the right-of-way closure, working with city council staff members, was a preference for keeping as much of the trees as possible. So we made these changes to the site plan with the parking to reduce the parking gross area, so we can keep as much of that trees and bushes that are existing along the right-of-way in the back. The Ambrose Street, as well as city council, was what really wanted us to work with Casey something. I forgot his last name all of a sudden. Yes, to try to keep as much of the existing trees and landscaping that's existing along Ambrose Street right-of-way. So we kind of reduced some of our setbacks, and also to try to incorporate and save as much as that. And as I mentioned a second ago, I only got the draft updated approved version of the new landscaping requirements Friday evening. So this was already submitted. So we just want to really just get that approved. And then if I can go back to the side elevation, please, really quick. The one on the bottom right-hand side right there, those 3 windows are over the staircase to provide natural light. I'd actually like to keep those. And the 2 windows that are not exactly in line with each other, if you go to the floor plan, I think we have that. I'm going to try to go through this as fast as I can, because you said you wanted to be out of here by 6:30.
Sorry, the PBA is going to kick us out, so
Well, they went.
I'm trying to
Never mind them.
accommodate them.
So in order to line those 2 up, you'll see on the back of the house, back there, there is a closet. Okay, go back up, sorry. Right there, you have a window at the staircase right there at that entrance, right below the bedroom at the back of the house. That's the window on the ground floor. And then if you go back to the upstairs, you'll see that I have another closet there. I really can't move that window because I already have a window over there down below. So they don't necessarily line up because of the staircase. So I would like to get that. I can eliminate the 3 windows, and I'm sure you can understand what I'm talking about, Cameron. I would like to have that light going into the staircase, that natural light on the side of the house, which is why I would like to keep those 3 square windows. Have operable windows over staircases. Well, quite frankly, who wants to clean those? And who's gonna operate them over a staircase? So I can eliminate the 3 square windows, but trying to line up those 2 last windows in the middle right there with the existing floor plans is a little complicated with the existing floor plan.
In the interest of time, I want to remind the board of what happened with this same discussion back with 6025 IH. So the condition that's listed in the staff report or in the staff recommendation related to the windows is the exact same that was in 6025 IH that was approved, and I believe the board had recommended that a transom window be used instead of those 3 fixed ones and still wanted that to align. So of course y'all can make something else just for reference.
Thank you. I just want to clarify about the site plan that large driveway to the rear parking area is so that you can keep all of the trees along Ambrose that are existing, right? That's the trade-off you made.
That's the trade-off we made to make this work.
Okay.
Is it Charles Townsend, I think, with City Council? We worked with him to get this approved, and we showed him this. He liked it, and I said, well, as long as I can get design review board to sign off on it, sure.
And there's not a sidewalk on this road?
The slope on this is pretty steep on the back of the house if you look.
Okay. So that driveway is at that, that slope?
That driveway is going to be steep, but yeah, it'll work according to my grading cross-section. It appears that we can make that work.
Can you go back to the elevations, please? So that large triangle of foundation will be exposed, and what's the material
We'll end up
there?
having some landscaping. I think the city conditions are either stucco or stone. We'll do one of the two, or, yeah.
Brick. Okay. And then is there actually room to put landscaping there? Because in the site plan, it looks like it's a solid sidewalk.
Yes, we could. We're probably going to end up eliminating the sidewalk that runs along. I got to still work with the engineering on that, but right now, currently, the sidewalk was proposed per the conversation with City Council because they wanted a greenway going along Ambrose Street.
So, okay,
turns
how
out-
do residents get to their parking area if there's not a sidewalk?
If you go back to the rear elevations, okay, the doors aren't still shown, darn it. Okay, so below that deck right there on the lower floor, basement level, there's gonna be doors there that give them a staircase that goes up to the ground floor.
That was one
Oh,
of my
we talked
questions.
about that last time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that on the last one, we had the same situation.
Yeah, I thought she fixed it, put the doors there, but apparently not.
Okay.
I thought Revit was better than that. It's supposed to make our lives easier when we use it.
The only comment I would have is if you're trying to make those windows align and have the constraints of the walls, they could both become smaller. They'd be skinnier, which may proportionally look odd, but then they could adjust in the framing and still align. But I'm not hell-bent on those aligning. I do agree that the transom window is better than the 3 and would actually be a nicer solution, I think, to it if you can get the header to work to span that. And you are confirming that that bottom left elevation has doors going into the basement, correct, from the parking?
Yeah, if you go to the floor plan, you'll see it.
Okay.
I'm not clear why it's not showing up, but I'm not a Revit expert yet. Give me about 3 or 4 more years and less hair.
I want to add something. From a middle housing standpoint, a 3-story townhouse is not permitted, and including doors in here may turn this basement into an additional floor, subject to some calculation that is mentioned in middle housing standard.
Go to the basement plan, please.
Yeah, so if 50% or more of the basement is above 6 feet, that may turn this basement into a floor
Okay,
area.
so it's not shown, okay, apparently I'm gonna have to have a conversation with Stacy. That is not the updated foundation plan. The staircase goes to the back and there's a little mechanical room in the back and all of that is grading. We already discussed and eliminated that. I already addressed that.
Okay, so there's part of that that is really truly crawl space / basement, and then the part that's from the stair to the outside
Is a
rear
hallway,
wall is all
hallway.
hallway, okay.
Yeah, it'll be a hallway that goes down the length of it. Yeah, because we had that conversation before about can't have the third floor. So it's only gonna be 2 floors. I'd say closer to 60% of it's gonna be crawl space. Because all I have is a small mechanical closet for mechanical equipment and a staircase that goes, a walkway that goes out the back.
Since we're talking, I thought we were trying to rush for PBA.
We are trying to rush, but we're also just waiting for them to kick us out.
Okay, and I'll keep talking. I had a
Which
question.
likely was gonna happen at 6:30.
I know this has been approved, but also the height of these are pretty tall. The 9-foot ceilings on both floors, that means that's an 8-foot door to the entry. I'm looking at the level markers, and if you do the math, it's 9 feet to bottom of ceiling or to top of framing. So is that an 8-foot door?
I believe so. I gotta go back and remember.
Which is quite atypical, especially for the context. And those are really tall windows. That's a 6-foot tall window almost adjacent to it, or 5'6". I guess that I say that I think this could stand to proportionally be a little bit squished down. Obviously, we've approved this before, but like if you took away a foot from each and only had 8-foot top of walls or 8-foot ceilings, you'd have 2 feet lower, which I think overall the proportions may benefit from that. But I believe I'm reviewing the level heights correctly.
I don't know, your eyesight might be better than mine. I forgot my glasses. But yeah, I could take a look at that. That shouldn't be a huge issue. It'll affect the staircase, not the end of the world.
Right.
Yeah, it says 9'1", I think.
For both of them. So they're really tall.
Yep.
But if this review is for this section and the other review has already been approved and it's on, then that wouldn't make sense to have these reduced by 2 feet. So
Right.
you can't retroactively grab that one and make it 2 feet lower also, so.
No.
Okay, there were others that were making comments about the site, so I'm not gonna make a motion, but I would entertain a motion if others would like to make one.
Do we have any other comments?
I have a question for staff on something like this, for example. I mean, that's a lot. What's, just for the board's perspective, what's staff's comfort level with approving something with that many recommendations?
Good point.
I'm okay with approving something with a lot of these recommendations. Again, these pretty much are the exact same recommendations that were on the previous one. I believe the only additions were about incorporating differentiation, and I think it was like 7 and 10 were maybe the additional ones from the last one. So I know very clearly what each of these conditions are and mean. In terms of incorporating differentiation, the staff report includes, we have had conditions like that before. I remember there were a couple duplexes that were side by side on Woodland that we approved with a similar condition. So the staff reports list some options they can do. So siding variation, roof variation, variation to the front porches. And again, in the opinion of staff, I think roof variation is probably more needed because they are so tall and so long. But you know, that if y'all want to add additional stuff to that, that's fine. But I personally am fine with all these conditions.
Would anybody make any amendments to these? I'm open to making a motion, but I just want to make sure that there's not any amendments.
My only amendment would be to resolve the lower level to make sure that those doors out to the parking area exist.
They're there. You have my word.
And then, we're not allowed to take you at your word. And then also,
Probably have it on my phone.
the side conditions where the driveway intersects the building and that exposed corner.
I'm sorry?
The exposed corner where there were sidewalks where the driveway comes through. There's that tall area of foundation where you said there was probably going to be landscaping.
We'll have to do something no matter what.
Yeah, so we just want to make sure that something is there and it's not just a sidewalk with 10 feet of parge coat.
I don't even want a sidewalk.
Okay,
I
but
was
you're
being-
showing one.
I know, it was because of city council.
Understood. I'm just saying that what's shown here is what we believe you want to build
Yeah.
because we have no other evidence. So we would just want to make sure that the final approved plan addresses that issue.
That the final
Did
approved
city-
plans include the sidewalk, or that they include landscaping in lieu of the sidewalk, or both?
Landscaping.
Okay.
Did city council already approve this, or is this subject to our approval?
City council
With the right-of-way
was-
closure?
Yes, city council was reviewing the right-of-way closure, so essentially that would just convert what you see down here into private property. It sounds like from what Mr. Forrestall is saying, that city council wants them to keep that as is. So right now, that's what it would be, but if they decide to move the buildings into that right-of-way, then that would come back before review. But the right-of-way closure itself is
But-
not related.
But I thought you had mentioned
No, no,
that
no.
city
The right-
council.
I'm sorry, hold on. The right-of-way was approved.
Okay.
We were asked to coordinate with Casey regarding the landscaping requirements to try to keep as much of it as possible. So we do have the flexibility to do that.
Yes, y'all have the ability to do that. I was just saying if y'all were moving that, the staff conditions have it written, just so that they would see the site plan. That's
The
all.
only
If the
reason I
building's
asked
moved.
was those sidewalks. Was that a condition of city council's approval of the right-of-way closure?
I was under the gun, and what we were providing was trying to get approval with the city council members, because they were pushing for us to provide this greenway idea that they don't have approval for or a budget. So we were jumping through hoops, and in order to keep within the construction schedule, I had to get the site plan in front of you guys for approval as well at the same time, expecting that I'd have to accept a greenway. And then at the day of the city council hearing, Parks and Rec came back and said, yeah, we're not gonna support it. So they pulled it the same day I had city council, which is the same way I found out about the greenway idea.
But I'm talking about the sidewalks at the drive aisle, or at the driveway. Was
No,
that what they had
that's not
wanted?
approved. That's not a condition of approval by the city council, so I can get rid of them if I
Okay,
want
got
to.
it, got it.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve based on staff recommendation with your revision that the foundation that's exposed, as stated on 8, be clad in stucco veneer.
And Suzanne's too.
And Suzanne's comment
And
on.
is screened by landscape.
Yeah, and be screened by landscaping. Does that capture it, everyone?
Yeah, and to verify that the doors to the parking area are.
Yes, and to verify that the doors to the parking area are gonna be there.
Yes. Second.
I'll chat with Stacy tomorrow morning.
Second.
Thank you.
I second
Okay,
it.
we have a motion and a second. All approved? I mean, I said that again, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one's approved.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Mhm.
Let's all go home.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.